Part 53. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahua. Chapter 535. Bai Hui returned to the car and saw Zhu Huntang video chatting with an old man with a white beard. The old man was not bald, but his beard and hair were all white, shining with a silvery light. For such an outstanding grandfather, Bai Hui always believed that they must have a status similar to the peerless masters in martial arts novels, but they may not necessarily be martial arts masters, but may be experts in other industries. The old man was talking to Zhu Huntang about the historical and cultural knowledge related to the sycamore tree. If you really want to talk about some of the status of the sycamore tree in history, it was mostly in the Han Dynasty and after. Zijing Miscellaneous Notes said, Shanglan Garden Tongsan, Chairtung, Indus, and Jingtong. When Huo Guang took his granddaughter to play in Shanglan Garden, his granddaughter, who later became Queen Shangguan, fell in love with the swing hanging on the sycamore tree in Shanglan Garden. Huo Guang asked her, would you like to play on the swing here every day? Bai Hui accompanied Zhu Huntang and listened to the history of the sycamore tree for a long time, but what Bai Hui doubted was that Zhu Huntang could remember these things after listening to them. The old man quoted the passage the phoenix sings in the high hills over there. The phoenix trees grow in the morning sun over there. The vines are luxuriant, and the yang is growing. She can't even recognize all the words. How many words can she make out by listening to the sounds? The car stopped at the teaching building where Zhu Huntang was going to attend class. The driver got out and opened the door. The driver's door opened a little faster than the rear door. Zhu Huntang rubbed his eyes, ended the video call, and said to Bai Hui, go to class. The driver will take you back. If I am not bullied by Lu Chang'an at noon, we will have lunch together. Okay, don't provoke him, Bai Hui said helplessly. Zhu Huntang is really like a masochist. He likes to provoke Lu Chang'an whenever he has something to do. Then he comes to Bai Hui crying after being bullied to denounce and scold Lu Chang'an. And then germinated solidly. Maybe she thinks there is a word cute in solid state germination, so she thinks she is cute like this? Zhu Huntang didn't take it seriously. She almost fell asleep after listening to some popular Chinese science that she couldn't understand along the way. It was a little cold during the short journey from the car. She shrank her neck and stretched her hands from behind her neck. Her hair was parted and spread over her neck. It was no longer cold. Zhu Huntang walked into the classroom with elegant steps. The third period had just ended. There were people moving around in the classroom. The girls went to the bathroom in twos and threes. Zhu Huntang looked around. He first saw Yan Qingcheng and nodded slightly. Then he saw Lu Chang'an sitting in the corner, with his hands on his waist. He raised his palms to his side, flapped them twice and prepared to run over, but immediately gave up. Maintaining the attitude of a wealthy lady as always, he gently pressed the hem of his skirt and walked to Lu Chang'an's side. The roll call has been made today, Lu Chang'an reminded her. Am I still going to be expelled? Zhu Huntang frowned slightly and didn't care. This is not the point. It's normal to fire you. If you fire me, there will be no donations for each school year. Who would do such a thing that has no benefit at all? Makes sense. Zhu Huntang glanced at the boys next to Lu Chang'an and waved. Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong were still a little suppressed by Zhu Huntang's momentum, and unconsciously moved a few positions to the other side. Qin's Haiqiang sat there for a moment, stunned, and moved over. Zhu Huntang pushed the motionless Lu Chang'an again. Lu Chang'an glanced at her and simply sat in an unoccupied seat in the front row. Zhu Huntang followed, sat next to Lu Chang'an, and immediately said, I discovered a secret of yours. I discovered that you are constipated. Lu Chang'an also discovered a secret about Zhu Huntang. I didn't. Zhu Huntang was brewing the mystery of telling the secret and the proud feeling of discovering his secret, but he completely destroyed it. I still feel a little angry. How can this person slander others casually? This serious slander is almost equivalent to thinking that she is not a fairy, but just immortal. Then tell me, is it your skirt that wants to die, or your little socks that want to die? Seeing the way she came prepared, Lu Chang'an knew that it was time for Zhu Huntang to sprout again. Zhu Huntang held down her skirt a little nervously, her breathing quickened slightly, and her cheeks bulged. Can you change your tactics? Don't always bully me with my little skirt and socks, Zhu Huntang said angrily. No one trick is popular all over the world, just like some authors write novels. There is no problem in writing 10 or 8 books based on one routine, but there are risks in changing the routine. Then I still have to say it, Zhu Huntang said with courage. Lu Chang'an opened his notes and casually sketched a simple drawing of a sheep. I heard from Bai Hui today that there was a man named Gui Yiguang. After his wife died, he planted a sycamore tree. From then on, ancient literati had a tradition of planting a sycamore tree after the death of his wife. A sycamore tree follows the trend. Zhu Huntang summarized the miscellaneous notes on traditional culture learned this morning. Lu Chang'an's hand shook, and the sheep painting was ruined. He couldn't help turning his head to look at Zhu Huntang. This person could always bring surprises to Lu Chang'an, no less than Zhou Dongdong and Shang Guandandan. At this time, there is a rough saying in county slang, and I don't know whether to say it or not. He didn't even need to question or confirm, and believed that this was just Zhu Huntang's own imagination. Bai Hui was often ridiculed by Lu Chang'an and Gao Duai for his IQ and grades, but in fact Bai Hui also had a total score of 750. After taking the exam for more than 600 points, I was admitted to the 985-211 university. It was impossible for Bai Fen not to be able to figure out whether the tree Gui Yiguang planted was a sycamore or a loquat tree. Lu Chang'an said nothing and drew a new sheep. He had nothing to say. He neither wanted to lament Zhu Huntang's remarks nor correct her, nor should he respond to her. Why didn't you respond? Zhu Huntang was stunned for a moment. He shouldn't be so calm. He had been poking at his emotional pain points for thousands of years. Lu Chang'an didn't want to pay attention to her. He happened to be in class and looked up at the teacher on the podium. Old man. Grandfather. Baa. Zhu Huntang was anxious to tell him his secret, so not responding at all meant no gossip at all. Grandpa, are you ignoring your little fairy sheep? Zhu Huntang hugged Lu Chang'an's arm and acted coquettishly. Lu Chang'an asked Qin's Haiqiang behind him to borrow some tape and put it on the table. Zhu Huntang looked at the tape, and many pictures came to mind, so she let go of Lu Chang'an's arm and sat honestly, with her hands folded together on the table, just like the posture of a primary school student on her first day of class. The little sheep is so good. Lu Chang'an touched Zhu Huntang's head with satisfaction. Hey, Zhu Huntang didn't want to say any more. Until the end of get out of class, Zhu Huntang didn't bother Lu Chang'an anymore. She just stared at the roll of tape. When get out of class was over, Qin's Haiqiang and others had to go back to the dormitory first. Lu Chang'an returned the tape to Qin's Haiqiang, and Zhu Huntang breathed a sigh of relief. I know, you planted most of the plane trees in Xiongda, Zhu Huntang said immediately without feeling the threat from the tape. Lu Chang'an nodded. Zhu Huntang suddenly felt proud. I think you planted the sycamore tree for a reason. Do you dare to tell me what the reason is? Zhu Huntang has done a lot of research and imagination. He has always been very interested in the mysterious stories surrounding Lu Chang'an, but he basically didn't tell her about them, so Zhu Huntang had to work hard to discover them on his own. I planted the sycamore trees one by one with my own hands. For many years, I sat under the sycamore tree and waited. When he rests, when he eats, when he is in a daze, when he reads, when he drinks tea, there is always a tall sycamore tree accompanying him, as if it is the incarnation of someone. Until one day, that person struggled to jump onto the shore like a passing wave from the long river of history, and walked back to him. Who is this guy? Zhu Huntang wanted to know. The appearance of this person would probably make An Nuan, Qin Yinan, and Bai Hui heartbroken. Our birthday. What? Zhu Huntang touched his ears. Our birthday, Lu Chang'an repeated. What our birthday? Oh, you don't know about our birthday, Lu Chang'an nodded. He didn't know whether Taiwan maintained the tradition of our birthday, but even if it did, it was reasonable for Miss Zhu not to know. You mean, you planted the sycamore tree because of our birthday? Zhu Huntang tugged his ears and looked at Lu Chang'an with wide eyes. Our country's Arbor Day was initiated by forestry experts such as Ling Deyang, Hanan, and Pei Ili during the Republic of China. It was originally the Qingming festival. Later, in order to commemorate the death of Sun Yat-sen, it was changed to March 12. This festival was established in the 1970s. It became a festival in our country again at the end of the 19th century. Lu Chang'an looked at Zhu Huntang and said, to talk about tree planting as a festival activity, it can be traced back to BC. Zhu Huntang looked around and saw that there were sycamore trees he planted everywhere. The leaves of the sycamore trees were all yellow, and they were shivering in the cold wind. Even so, they seemed to be stubbornly making a mocking sound. You planted so many sycamore trees just because of Arbor Day. Zhu Huntang let go of his ears, put his hands on his hips angrily, and tilted his head to look at Lu Chang'an angrily. Yes, I will also plant trees on Arbor Day next year. Will you go? Lu Chang'an invited in a calm tone. No, Zhu Huntang left angrily. It was a waste of time. She made an appointment with Bai Hui to have dinner together. At noon, she and Bai Hui could enjoy her new collection of animal-themed socks. Lu Chang'an smiled and turned to look at the ubiquitous sycamore trees on campus with gentle eyes. I recommend a good book, The Great Dr. Ling Ran, that has correct outlook on life, positivity, healthy thinking, and conforms to the core values of socialism. Ling Ran, a medical student, has a small goal to become the greatest doctor in the world, but he accidentally ends up achieved. If you like Xian Yang, please give me a monthly ticket. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 537. Lu Chang'an walked on the winter campus. Although he was not a person who was easily affected by his mood, looking at the sycamore trees, he still thought of many past events. After people live for a long time, it is actually the most difficult thing to keep their state of mind from being affected by the past and still be able to live like ordinary people, with the same joys and sorrows. Even Lu Chang'an can only choose to clear the cache, organize the memory, optimize the system, and restart. That's pretty good too. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but think of Shang Guandandan shouting when he saw the wild boar. Such a big wild boar must have revived spiritual energy. Now, if we allow organisms to evolve and there is a global revival of aura, it might be very interesting. Lu Chang'an looked down at his hands and thought, forget it, the world is pretty good now. Just as he was thinking about all this, Lu Chang'an's cell phone rang and a message came in. He took out his cell phone and looked at it. There were several missed calls and messages. Lu Chang'an was about to read the messages when another call came. There must be something urgent. Lu Chang'an hesitated for a moment, but still answered the call from an unknown number with good intentions. If the caller was providing services such as loans, Lu Chang'an decided to ask if he could get a loan to help him buy a flat-top fishery boat. Something like that. It would be best if you can repay it in installments. The repayment period is preferably 500 years or more. A 1,000-year loan is acceptable, and the interest rate is higher. After all, this ship is quite expensive. Hello, the phone was connected, but it was a little quiet over there. Lu Chang'an did not hang up the phone immediately. You can hear a little breathing sound, which seems to be speaking. Do you want to lend me money to buy an aircraft carrier? Seeing that the other party was silent, Lu Chang'an said casually, took the phone away from his ear, and was about to hang up. 1. An aircraft carrier is worth tens of billions. Lu Chang'an frowned slightly. When he heard the voice of a girl, he didn't care that the other party misjudged the price of the aircraft carrier. In fact, it is extremely expensive to build an entire combat, training, and maintenance system for an aircraft carrier. A single aircraft carrier under a mature shipbuilding system, the cost cannot reach tens of billions, regardless of whether the unit is RMB or US dollars. Except for the big countries in South Asia. This girl's voice was nice and stammering, as if it took a lot of effort to work up the courage to talk to Lu Chang'an. This voice was a bit familiar, but after thinking about it carefully, I felt that no girl I knew had such a charming voice with a hint of naivete. It's tens of billions. How many billions can you lend me? I'll pay it back in 500 years. Now that the other party had spoken, Lu Chang'an did not hang up the phone. 500 years, do you still really want to live another 500 years, do you think you are Kangxi? Lu Chang'an laughed, because when the other party said, I really want to live another 500 years, he obviously had a bit of a singing voice, but after she realized it, she quickly lowered her voice to cover it up. He could also hear that although her words were a little rambling, she was obviously trying to relieve her own tension. She was currently in a state of panic. Kangxi, he wants to live another 500 years. This is not a good thing, but his son is very powerful. I have no problem living another 500 years, and I have plenty of time. It's just that you don't talk to me again. If anything happens, I won't give you 5 seconds. Don't hang up the phone. You tell me who you are. I am your Aunt Lu. I don't have an aunt. I am An Nuan's mother. After saying that, he finally breathed a sigh of relief, and his tone was no longer so nervous. He emphasized, really. Lu Chang'an was silent for a moment. In ordinary people's ordinary lives, and in the thinking mode of ordinary people where there are no abnormal phenomena that transcend common sense and occur frequently, when they hear such a call for the first time, they will only think that someone is playing a trick on them. Her voice doesn't even sound the same, so she pretends to be her girlfriend's mother. It's really ridiculous. Do you think he's an idiot? Immediately afterwards, you should scold the other party, hang up the phone, or even block the number. Are you eating facial cream again? Lu Chang'an didn't question much. He was not so unbelievable, nor was he so stunned, nor did he feel that there was a lack of things beyond common sense in this world. Many extraordinary things had nothing to do with him. Related, or made by him. How do you know? Lu Yuwang was a little guilty and surprised. Although she was ready to confess the matter when she called her, it was only 3 or 5 sentences later that she was exposed, but Lu Yuwang still felt a little unhappy. He guessed it. It was true that she had taken the cream again, but for him to bring it up so directly and immediately without her having to confess, it meant that he had already guessed that she would do so, and he had clearly promised him not to take it. Why doesn't he believe it? He must have suspected her a long time ago. It's impossible to guard against domestic thieves. I told An Nuan to keep an eye on you. It seems that she can't keep an eye on you. After all, the cream is in your hand. Only you can control your mouth, Lu Chang'an said softly. Shaking her head slightly, a woman just can't control her mouth. Some women's inability to control their mouths is manifested in their liking to eat. Some people's inability to control their mouths is manifested in gossiping everywhere. I think it's okay to eat a little more. I feel good recently, but I just don't have enough sleep, so I just want to eat a little more. Lu Yuwang said hesitantly. The thing is that she didn't listen to Lu Chang'an. She already knew that she was wrong. He wouldn't be as cruel to her as last time, right? It seems that your vocal cords have been affected this time. This voice should be your voice when you were a girl. It's not a big problem. After all, voice verification is not common now. As for relatives and friends discovering that your voice has changed, that's not much. It's a big deal. After chatting and meeting several times, I confirmed that this strange voice is you, so it won't have any impact. Lu Chang'an decided that the creams he would create in the future could only be kept by Anyuan and provided to her for use, otherwise sooner or later something goes wrong. The situation will be different for everyone, but since Lu Yuwang has shown a drive for reverse growth, no matter how serious the situation is, it will become more difficult to handle in this direction. It's not this is a trivial matter. Where are you now? Lu Yuwang listened carefully and found that his tone was okay, so she felt relieved. After all, she is an elder. If she is caught by a junior, she will keep scolding her. A bit hard to accept. Single women generally have stronger self-esteem and need to save face. I just finished class, Lu Chang'an said, looking around. Is there anything else in front of the teaching building? Come and see me, I have something to tell you. Lu Yuwang gave Lu Chang'an an address. You said no on the phone. The address Lu Yuwang mentioned was a tea restaurant, but Lu Chang'an wanted to eat beef noodles for lunch today. Lu Yuwang insisted on meeting, so Lu Chang'an walked to the address Lu Yuwang mentioned and asked the waiter about the location of the box. Walking straight in from the corridor on the second floor, there were large and small boxes inside the roller curtains. There is a trickling water curtain downstairs, and several bird cages are hung under the eaves, which makes it feel like the birds are singing and the flowers are fragrant. Lu Chang'an walked to the door of the innermost box, rang the bell, and then opened the curtain. Sorry to bother you, I went to the wrong place. Lu Chang'an took a look and saw that Lu Yuwang was not sitting inside, so he turned around and walked out. Just as he lowered the curtain, Lu Chang'an paused for a moment, then turned around and walked in. Children's Day is coming soon. If Zhou Dongdong's star value reaches 200,000, Kidian will organize a birthday event for Zhou Dongdong. Book friends are also crowdfunding and giving gifts to Zhou Dongdong to increase his star value. Xiahua also I will cooperate with everyone's enthusiasm and start an explosion. I think everyone is impatient with these short chapters of 3,000 to 2,000 words in the past few days. Comparing yourself to Zhou Dongdong can also increase your star value, free of charge. Thanks to the recently added leaders, horses stepping on the blue wind, do you know how to go to heaven? And Nangzia became the new leaders of this book for their generous rewards. If you want to give a reward, it is best to click on the character on the book page, Zhou Dongdong, and click to send a gift. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 538. Lu Chang'an's fingers left the curtain, and the curtain made of gauze and pearls slid down from his shoulders, blocking the scene outside, but making the inside a small room, very quiet. This tea house was Lu Yuwang's choice. Given her temperament, this place naturally suits her. There are paintings hanging on the walls, tea brewing on the table, and a few random flowers in the wide-mouth bottle by the window. Seasonal flowers are in bud, and the smoke curling out from the small incense burner is as thin as silk. District 11 has the traditional three elegant ways, tea ceremony, flower arrangement, and incense ceremony, which naturally originated from China. The literati in the Song dynasty had four elegant things: hanging pictures, ordering tea, arranging flowers, and burning incense. It is a model here, and you can see the management. People are classy and attentive, which is exactly what Lu Yuwang likes. But the incense couldn't be that good. After all, the cost had to be considered. Lu Chang'an took a wet towel and threw it on the small incense burner to cover it. Lu Chang'an then sat down and looked at the two girls wearing sunglasses opposite. Looking at the way they looked at him, Lu Chang'an knew that he was not looking for the wrong place or the wrong person. He said nothing but rang the service bell. The atmosphere in the box was a little quiet, because his expressionless face fully demonstrated that this was not something to laugh about. The two girls opposite had never seen Lu Chang'an with such an expression, and naturally they didn't know how to respond or speak for a while. He still wants to order food and drink tea? There's nothing we can do about it, let's see what he wants to do first. The waiter rang the bell and came in, bringing menus, tea and drink orders, and music scores. Let's order some music first. Two springs reflect the moon, listen to the pines, cold spring wind, big waves washing the sand, Zaejun leaving the fortress, dragon boat. Lu Chang'an ordered the music. Sir, you have good taste. These 6 songs are also the songs our musicians are best at, the waiter complimented. Lu Chang'an nodded, and then ordered a splash of orange juice, 2 dishes, and 1 soup instead of tea. Please wait a moment. The waiter left and loosened the curtain rope a little, covering the entire door, and the people inside could no longer be seen from below. The gentleman who played the erhu sat on the porch and played music. The food came quickly. Lu Chang'an took a few bites slowly, then put down the bowl and chopsticks, and finally looked up at the 2 girls opposite. They were watching his expression. Women are like this. Once they get into a big trouble, their mood, reaction, and attitude often depend not on the seriousness of the matter, but on the attitude of the person they need to face. If Lu Chang'an had a fierce look, they would probably be trembling with fear. If Lu Chang'an treats each other coldly, they will show a little regret and look pitiful. If Lu Chang'an had no expression on his face, they would lick his face and sneer, lowering their eyebrows. If Lu Chang'an didn't take it seriously, they wouldn't think there was anything wrong, and they would be even more disapproving than Lu Chang'an. If Lu Chang'an directly solves the problem and gives a few words of comfort, they will feel that it has nothing to do with them at all, with the kind of "that's right, how can you blame us, it's not because of. If you had earlier. I knew." Sentences like this came out. Women are such creatures who are good at observing words and emotions and responding to them. One of you is Professor Lu Yuangliu, and the other is Professor Ling Yueling, right? Lu Chang'an put his fingers on the chopsticks and let them go. He looked very unappetizing and did not look at the 2 of them. Yes, I am your Aunt Lu, and she is Professor Ling. Lu Yuang felt a little embarrassed. This was in front of Professor Ling. As his prospective mother-in-law, his attitude was a bit embarrassing. Isn't it too fierce? It's really shameless, but after Lu Yuang observed his words, he felt that now was not the time to worry about whether Lu Chang'an gave him face or not. His fierce look was a bit scary. Chang'an, what exactly is the situation? Professor Ling pushed Lu Yuang and asked carefully with a smile on his face. Lu Chang'an raised his head. Professor Ling was originally a little older than Lu Yuang, but now he looked as if his age had regressed 20 years overnight, making him less than 20 years old. Professor Ling's figure and appearance were not as good as Lu Yuang's, but at her age, she was still considered a MILF, and with the addition of her status and temperament, she could still maintain a kind of charm that was quite effective for men. Charm. She is younger now, and relatively ordinary. She looks like an ordinary girl that can be seen everywhere on university campuses. Therefore, some women can only rely on youth, while some women can rely on years to accumulate mature charm. Lu Chang'an knew that Professor Ling was good at belly dancing and was Lu Yuang's teacher in this area. The 2 of them had a very good relationship. If your relationship is good, will you rejuvenate together? As for Lu Yuang, Lu Chang'an was a little emotional. It turned out that Lu Yuang looked like this when she was young. When she took off her sunglasses, it seemed as if An Nuan was sitting opposite her. Except for the look in her eyes and the gentle and elegant detailed movements of a mature woman that are revealed inadvertently, if she wasn't familiar with An Nuan to Lu Chang'an's level, it would be impossible to tell them apart. Even An Nuan's best friends like Hans Hizi and Zhang Daol have spent less time together after college. With the current frequency of meeting, Lu Yuang will think of her as An Nuan when he first sees her like this. Did you hear the erhu playing outside? Lu Chang'an continued to ask expressionlessly, without answering Professor Ling's question. I give you cream to smear on your face, but you have to eat it. If you don't listen to the old man's words, can you end up in a simple way? Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling looked at each other, wondering why Lu Chang'an was rambling, but there was no way, who made them feel guilty. At this time, besides accompanying Xing Xing and talking to him, what else can I do? I know that these are the only 6 pieces of music that Master of Bing left recording during his lifetime. Lu Yuwang's appreciation of traditional folk art is not at the level of a master or expert, but he can still distinguish and understand it at the common sense level. Yes, when I saw your appearance, I thought I was going blind. Lu Chang'an listened to the music, picked up his chopsticks and continued eating. We are not ugly, Lu Yuwang said depressedly. Chang'an, this matter, we must be at fault, but you see, getting angry is not the way to solve the problem. I would like to apologize to you first. Professor Ling's tone was still very gentle, with a low eyebrow. Lu Chang'an felt that this was what a normal, mature woman looked like. It was obvious that Professor Ling's character, temper, and mentality were probably much more mature than Lu Yuwang's when she was young, so she is in this youthful state now. And it had little impact on her mood. Lu Yuwang is different. She is different from ordinary middle-aged women. Ordinary middle-aged women, after their youth has passed away, will obviously feel that their husbands, families, and society treat them differently from when they were young. However, there is no way around it. They must accept it, and their mentality will change, thus appearing mature. Stand up. Where is Lu Yuwang? She has always had the same temperament, because everyone around her is still as loving, complimentary, and full of affection as she was when she was young. Her life and the emotional feedback she receives in the social process have basically remained unchanged. It is difficult for such a woman to mature, just like many young people often feel that if their parents are loving and their father especially dotes on their mother, then their mother will often appear to be particularly coquettish and naive, always likes to act coquettishly, and is not much different from other people's mothers. Same. Lu Yuwang doesn't have a husband, but she has people chasing her, holding her up, and singing compliments to her. How can she not be proud? Where is the need for a seemingly hard and mature shell to protect oneself? That's it, I'll pour you some tea. Don't be angry after you drink it. I promise I'll never do this again. Lu Yuwang originally made a pot of tea while waiting for Lu Chang'an with Professor Ling. Poured a glass and handed it over with both hands. Seeing that he didn't take it, he carefully observed his expression and placed it next to him. After looking at his expression, Lu Yuwang pushed the teacup again to avoid the inconvenience for him to pick up the food. Are you sure it will work? I told you this last time at your house, Lu Chang'an said angrily, and did not drink tea. He still drank his orange juice. He had been drinking orange juice just now, and the tea contained a lot of tannic acid. This substance is prone to complex reactions with various ingredients in the juice, destroying the vitamins in the juice, and can also increase the acidity of the gastric juice and damage the gastric mucosa. The most important thing is that it affects the taste, making the tea unpalatable. Orange juice doesn't taste good either. Lu Chang'an did not criticize Lu Yuwang for not knowing common sense. Originally, she should have talked about all the aspects of healthcare knowledge that she had tried. Lu Yuwang stopped talking. He said that An Nuan would supervise her. So since someone was supervising her, she would naturally relax. So when An Nuan didn't supervise her, she would naturally, just eat a little more. It won't happen this time, it will work this time. Professor Ling held the back of Lu Yuwang's hand and patted it gently, smiling at Lu Chang'an. In this situation, it seemed that Professor Ling had nothing to do with her. She was just a companion, just here to intercede for Lu Yuwang. Lu Chang'an doesn't mind either. There is no doubt that Professor Ling has never eaten facial cream before. Any normal woman would not take the initiative to try it, even if more and more cosmetics claim to be edible, but if I wasn't stupid, I would never eat it. Lu Chang'an didn't need to ask more about the reason why Professor Ling became like this, and Nuan used the video as a prize to help Hans Hizzy and Professor Ling get a bottle of facial cream, and Professor Ling also used it. She was naturally ordinary at that time. Usage: after Lu Yuwang found out that the cream could still be eaten, he naturally shared it with Professor Ling. Middle-aged women had some physical discomforts of one kind or another. How could Professor Ling withstand Lu Yuwang's temptation, so the two of them ate together? It's nothing more than this kind of development. When women do bad things, they encourage each other and then lament together. Lu Chang'an glanced at Lu Yuwang. Lu Yuwang felt a kind of relaxation, so he sat upright and turned his head slightly to look out the window. At this time, he could be a little more reserved. Okay, Lu Chang'an nodded, thanks for your hospitality, I have classes in the afternoon, so I'll leave first. Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling were stunned for a moment, then stood up together. Lu Chang'an hadn't stood up yet. Their hands were in mid-air, and their pulling movements were awkwardly retracted. Help me, Lu Yuwang decided not to be reserved. She remembered her feelings when she secretly watched An Nuan act coquettishly towards Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an was just like An Nuan. What's An Nuan said? It's very simple, it's just acting coquettishly. Who can't do this? Lu Yuwang was not acting coquettishly towards Lu Chang'an, but her coquettish and flattering tone satisfied a man's pride and self-esteem. This is a woman's talent. There is no place to use this talent, but it does not mean that she really doesn't know how to do it. It's not that Lu Chang'an really doesn't care about Lu Yuwang, but she must learn a lesson. Lu Chang'an is a very generous person, can he be a chicken? Of course not, he just wanted to show off enough to make Lu Yuwang realize that if there was a next time, she would not be able to get rid of the abnormal situation so easily. Aren't you doing well now? You're so young, don't women all look forward to regaining their youth? Lu Chang'an said calmly, tapping his fingers lightly on the table and looking at Lu Yuwang in front of him. In fact, this is a very strange feeling. He must always emphasize that the person sitting across from him is Lu Yuwang, not An Nuan. Because looking at An Nuan and looking at Lu Yuwang are completely different feelings. If you don't pay attention, the feeling when looking at An Nuan will come over you. The whole person's eyes, corners of his mouth, eyebrows, smile, body posture and language are all, it's very different, and in the end, you will immediately realize that this is Lu Yuwang. This kind of instantaneous change in feeling is not a comfortable thing. Regaining youth, that means getting better and better in shape, better and better in skin, and better in appearance and spirit without affecting our daily life, social interaction, family, and work, instead of becoming someone else, at the cost of completely losing your current life, work, and social interactions, Lu Yuwang sighed. In fact, she was not without a hint of joy at first, but she soon realized that this situation actually had no meaning other than satisfying the psychological needs of appearing youthful. Because she has become like this, she has no way to face her previous social circle, her relatives and friends. If it is exposed, it will be impossible for her to live the same life as before. Wherever you go, you will be the target of onlookers. This kind of onlookers is different from the previous attention. Will you be regarded as a monster? Will they be studied and dissected? It's scary to think about. The most important thing is that she looks exactly like An Nuan. What does An Nuan think of her mother? Lu Yuwang was a little uneasy. Although he felt that An Nuan could not abandon his mother like this, Lu Yuwang just felt unsure. Professor Ling also agreed with Lu Yuwang's statement that when the two of them were in such a situation, they were always flustered and just wanted to quickly return to their original appearance. Professor Ling, let me feel your pulse. Lu Chang'an opened his palm and motioned for Professor Ling to extend his wrist. Situations like this were actually not too rare in his life, and he also had some experience in dealing with them. In fact, not everyone will be like this after taking facial cream. There will probably be 1 in 100. It is relatively rare for them to both mutate. He has already seen that Professor Ling's condition is relatively mild. It can be considered an allergic reaction and he can recover quickly without any treatment. Lu Yuwang has some problems, it may take more for her to recover. It would take a little time, but there was still a way to think of it, and he had every reason to let Lu Yuwang change back. I recommend a good book, The Weed with Cheats. There are many books about coming to another world, many books about cheats, and many books about systems. This is the only book about turning into a weed. Today's chapter has a lot more words than yesterday's. We are all working hard for little kid Zhou Dongdong. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 539. Professor Ling stretched out his hand, and Lu Chang'an put 2 fingers on Professor Ling's white wrist. When his fingers fell, he could feel that her pulse was strong and solid, and her body was in very good condition. Lu Chang'an glanced at Professor Ling. Professor Ling used to have mature feminine qualities. Although Han Hezi's figure and appearance were only average compared to An Nuan's, she was still much prettier than Professor Ling was when she was young now. I think Professor Ling had a handsome man. Husband, improved the genes of the next generation. Professor Ling felt a stinging pain on his wrist where Lu Chang'an was holding him, as if some thin needle was piercing into his skin. It was unbearable for a moment. He frowned and let out a squeak, and retracted his arm involuntarily, but he was pressed tightly by Lu Chang'an's 2 fingers and could not move at all. Professor Ling then remembered that in the past, he heard Lu Yuwang and An Nuan talk about Lu Chang'an's fighting skills, but they didn't take it seriously at the time. Do the mother and daughter still think that fighting well is something worth being happy about? Now it seems that Lu Chang'an is not just a good fighter, but a real practitioner. The tingling sensation on his skin just now may be the legendary internal power. Like those martial arts in martial arts novels that are mysterious and difficult to explain with modern basic scientific knowledge, such as 9 Yang Divine Art, 7 Injury Fist, and 9 Yin White Bone Claw, maybe this is the case. Professor Ling's random thoughts were interrupted by the pain. He felt as if his whole body was being stung by Lu Chang'an's internal power, and he almost screamed again. Fortunately, Lu Chang'an released Professor Ling's wrist in time. How is it? Professor Ling asked hurriedly. Lu Chang'an's hand was very mysterious. Although she suffered a little, it made her feel relieved. It seemed that Lu Chang'an was indeed capable of helping her solve the problem. Follow my instructions for a while, and you will recover soon. Lu Chang'an had actually extracted the excess essence that caused Professor Ling's abnormal physical condition, and she would naturally recover in 2 days. Okay. Professor Ling clasped his hands together, breathed a sigh of relief, and looked at Lu Chang'an with a relaxed smile. It's my turn. Lu Yuwang looked serious and bravely stretched out her hand, clenching and unclenching her fists. She felt a little painful when she heard Professor Ling's voice just now. Let's go. Lu Chang'an had almost eaten, drank orange juice, and listened to some songs. He was in a peaceful mood and ignored Lu Yuwang. What about me? Lu Yuwang hurriedly stretched out his hand in front of Lu Chang'an to express that she wanted it too. You don't have to now. Lu Chang'an shook his head. Why shouldn't I use it? Lu Yuwang asked incomprehensibly. Lu Chang'an had already walked out of the box. His attitude towards me is much worse than his attitude towards you, Lu Yuwang made a comparison and said to Professor Ling depressedly. Maybe he thinks you are the instigator. Professor Ling thought for a moment and said, also, Lu you look younger and your mentality seems to have become younger. Really, Lu Yuwang didn't realize it, because she always felt that she was a young person, very young, and her mentality was very young. He must have the final say on how to arrange it. He doesn't explain it to you, probably because there is no need to explain it to you. You probably wouldn't understand even if he told you. Professor Ling comforted him. Hearing Professor Ling's explanation, Lu Yuwang felt much more comfortable. At the same time, he also felt a little emotional that An Nuan was really lucky. It turned out that Lu Chang'an was so kind to An Nuan not just because of her face, but also because of Lu Chang'an and An Nuan. The gentle and graceful look when talking about love, but when facing Lu Yuang, who now looks almost exactly the same, it seems as if she owed him in her previous life. After walking out, both Lu Yuang and Professor Ling put on sunglasses, covering most of their faces. They wore down jackets that they rarely wore on weekdays, so as to prevent acquaintances from looking at them twice because they looked at the clothes and thought they looked familiar. Lu Chang'an felt that it was necessary for Lu Yuang to cover up. After all, An Nuan knew her a lot on the campus of Hunan University. Someone might find that she appeared in two places at the same time. As for Professor Ling, there was no need for her. She was probably always old acquaintances may not remember what she looked like 20 years ago. What should we do next? Professor Ling asked Lu Chang'an for his opinion. Lu Yuang also felt that the next step was treatment. She and Professor Ling were lagging behind just now, and they had agreed that Professor Ling would ask about these matters because Lu Chang'an had a bad attitude towards Lu Yuang. Next, I suggest you go back and get some changes of clothes and daily necessities. After all, you can't go home before you recover, Lu Chang'an said. Professor Ling and Lu Yuang nodded repeatedly, before they had time to consider this issue. Then we have to take leave. Professor Ling looked at Lu Chang'an. How long will the leave take? Professor Ling, you can just ask for 2 days. As for Professor Lu, you should prepare for at least a week. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and gave a time. Why can't she be fine in 2 days? Lu Yuang was about to be surprised and curious, but Professor Ling pulled her back and stopped asking any more questions. I have 2 classes in the afternoon. I'm going to class first. After you pack up, go to the workers' and peasants' gymnasium and wait for me. Remember to put on your sneakers, clothes, and a swimsuit. Lu Chang'an looked at the time and said. Why do you need to change into sneakers and clothes, and a swimsuit? Why bring a swimsuit? It's extremely cold this winter, so outdoor swimming is definitely out of the question. Did Lu Chang'an know that they would stay in a hotel? They will definitely choose a hotel with a heated swimming pool. They are all of this age, so there is no reason to wrong themselves by staying in a hotel. This time Lu Yuang had no idea. Lu Chang'an nodded and walked towards the teaching building. Lu Yuang and Professor Ling stood there. There was no warm sunshine in the winter, and the cold wind blew the sycamore leaves on the ground. Even though they were wearing thick clothes, the two of them still felt that they could not feel warm. They looked at each other and looked at the big sunglasses on the other person's face. After all, their mood was not as tense as in the morning. Lu Chang'an seemed to be very confident. I can't say that he was very confident, but he would definitely be able to restore them to their original appearance. We are just like this temporarily. Lu Yuang rubbed his hands and felt that his palms were a little warm, so he put his palms against his cheeks and glanced at Professor Ling. Professor Ling also made the same move, which made his cheeks warm and his thinking seemed to become more active. This means that we will recover in a few days. Professor Ling showed a smile, and it seemed that the warmth of his palms also warmed their mood. The way we are now is actually, also an experience. Lu Yuang felt a little emotional. In his beautiful eyes, the pupils turned and he looked left and right. It's the feeling of being young. It's the feeling of being a girl. Right. Professor Ling secretly took off his glasses, looked around, and dodged slightly. Then he realized that no one would think of her true identity in this way, so he straightened his back and stopped shrinking. You seem to have changed all of a sudden. Lu Yuang was surprised. Professor Ling's mood probably changed, and his whole temperament also changed. That smile and girlish sweetness were not Lu Yuang's. Looking forward to the familiar Professor Ling. I was thinking, since I can change back, I should take advantage of these 2 days to have some fun. No one knows who I am anyway, Professor Ling said, somewhat ready to make a move. Mature women actually have a bit of madness hidden in their hearts. What do you want to do? Lu Yuwang rubbed his hands, his eyes shining. I want to pretend to be a female college student to seduce my husband and test him. Professor Ling looked around, as if her husband was right next to him, pulling Lu Yuwang and standing behind the tree without being discovered. You still call me naive? You can't do this. Lu Yuwang shook his head. People's hearts cannot be tested casually. I still trust my old Han. Professor Ling hesitated for a moment and smiled self-deprecatingly. What's more, he has seen many beautiful women, so I may not be very attractive to him. You are stupid. Others don't remember what you looked like 20 years ago. Doesn't Lao Han still remember? You would scare him to death if you ran in front of him. Lu Yuwang thought for a while and laughed. Then I always want to do something, Professor Ling said without giving up. I want to do something that young people can do. Let's talk about it. Lu Yuwang couldn't think of anything interesting to do for a while. Let's go clean up first. He gave us 2 classes to prepare. For a woman, it's really not enough to live out for 2 days and only have 2 classes to pack her luggage. What's more, they have to ask for leave. They can't call directly to ask for leave, which is a bit troublesome, and they have to think of a way. However, women are all good at making excuses, not to mention Lu Yuwang's ability to talk to college leaders, so it shouldn't be a big problem. Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling got everything done as quickly as possible. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was at home in the afternoon, they packed up their things and hurriedly drove out, then asked Lu Chang'an where to meet. Workers' Stadium. This is a public gymnasium open to the general public. Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling parked their cars and followed Lu Chang'an's instructions, wearing sneakers and sportswear and arriving at Gate 1. Let's run around the outer circle of the gymnasium track and field for a while. Lu Chang'an looked at the 2 female professors expressionlessly. Although Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling had already guessed that the next recovery measures might require some exercise, but, running laps? Running circles is youth. Who in their youth does not have memories of running around the track and field in a desperate struggle? Lu Chang'an waved his hand and showed the momentum of a physical education teacher. Run for me. No rest in between. I didn't shout stop, you have to climb down for me. Only in this way can you consume the super active energy in your body and stimulate the recovery ability of your cells. Lu Chang'an still gave them a very good reason. As for whether the reason is scientific or not, of course he has the final say. If we don't leave them with unforgettable memories, there's no telling if there will be a next time. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 540. Workers' Stadium is how the older generation refers to it. For people born in 2000 and 2000, more people will call it Juncha City Sports Center. It was planned in 1950 and completed in 1952. It has been renovated and expanded many times since then. Now it is one of the largest stadiums in the country in terms of venue size. The surrounding track is a 400-meter circular plastic track. If it is not a competition standard, it is just a running track. The outermost circle is of course more than 400 meters. Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling looked at each other. Although they are not lazy people who are industrious and do not like labor, exercise, and fitness, as professional women, their daily fitness and exercise are all about gentleness and elegance, focusing on self-cultivation and shaping. Instead of sweating profusely. The most they can do is jog for a while in the community or campus, but now Lu Chang'an seems to mean that the best thing is to let them run until they die. Run or not? If not, I don't care about you, Lu Chang'an said. This attitude is really bad. When had Lu Yuwang ever been treated like this by someone else? Most of the time, even if she asked for help from others, others would happily accompany her with a smile. Forget it, people had to bow their heads under the eaves. Lu Yuwang glared at Lu Chang'an, and when he recovered, he would come to his house again to see if he could still drink the tea she made. Lu Yuwang was still staring, but Professor Ling had already started running. Although she felt like she might be tortured to death, her body had become younger. She wanted to feel the vitality of her youth and challenge something she hadn't done in a long time. Yes, as Lu Chang'an said, this is a memory of youth. Who was not driven to run laps by military training instructors, physical education teachers, class teachers, and the like when they were in school? Looking at Professor Ling's back, she waved to Lu Yuwang as she ran. Lu Yuwang looked at his shoelaces. Hey, the shoelaces were not tied properly, so he squatted down to tie the shoelaces, and he could wait for a while. Got it? I've already run half a lap, and you're still tying your shoes. If Lu Chang'an were a physical education teacher, the pointer would have been removed by now. In the past, when physical education teachers encountered disobedient girls, it was sometimes difficult to take action directly. The pointer was used to slap girls. If they met male classmates, they would slap them away. However, today's students are all delicate. Can't beat it? My shoelaces are very long and a little knotted. It's easy to fall on them when running. Lu Yuwang tied a very beautiful knot, then stood up and smoothed his hair with his backhand. You look like an Nuan, but an Nuan has nothing like your personality, Lu Chang'an commented calmly. What do you mean I look like an Nuan? It's because an Nuan looks a lot like me and I gave birth to her. Lu Yuwang was a little annoyed after hearing what he meant. Fortunately, he still remembered an Nuan. The so-called thinking about things after seeing them people, let alone people who are almost identical? Looking at her face, he had to be a little gentler in his tone, right? Run, Lu Chang'an frowned and roared when he saw her fidgeting with her hair again. Lu Yuwang was startled, feeling like he was going to hit someone. Professor Ling happened to have already run around and was almost here, so Lu Yuwang slowly ran over to meet Professor Ling. You are really good at grinding, so, are you not afraid that the results will not be good later? Professor Ling said to Lu Yuwang. This Lu Chang'an didn't give an Nuan any face at all, and he was cruel to me. Is this his attitude towards his elders? Lu Yuwang complained. You are used to men smiling all over your face and looking like chrysanthemums on their faces. You can't treat him as an ordinary man. He is not one of those people who has a good impression of you. I think his serious attitude shows that you are seriously considering us. Why are you complaining? Professor Ling calmed his breathing and advised. That's true. But in the future, when Zhi finds a boyfriend, he will also be picky about you. Let's see what you think. Can this be the same thing? Just cooperate well and don't commit any crime. You still think that someone should be gentle and gentle to coax you. He is an Nuan's boyfriend, not your boyfriend. Oh, what are you talking about, Lao Ling? I'll beat you away. Look at you talking like an Nuan. The two women started running happily, but they didn't find it as difficult as they thought. 1 lap. 2 laps. 5 laps. The speed had slowed down, and their words were even weaker. The two of them ran near Lu Chang'an and asked breathlessly, how much longer do we have to run? I kept running without shouting to stop. Lu Chang'an waved his hand, indicating for them to continue. I can't run anymore. Lu Yuwang asked to rest for a while. Having a rest means everything you just did was wasted and you have to start over again. Upon hearing this, Professor Ling quickly pulled Lu Yuwang, and the two of them staggered back to the track. Feeling like eating melon seeds, Lu Chang'an walked to the store. Lu Chang'an bought 2 bottles of Lushan snake grass water, a pack of message, ginger juice, a bottle of tonic water, and a pack of refreshing mints. Cool mints are a kind of candies wrapped in black and green plastic. They taste very cold and have a very strong mint flavor, which is very irritating to the mouth. People born in the 1980s and 1990s are more likely to remember them. Lushan white flower snake grass water comes in a glass bottle. After Lu Chang'an opened the bottle cap, he carefully tore off the outer packaging, and then mixed everything he bought. In the end, they turned into 2 bottles of unknown liquid that was yellow and turbid. Lu Chang'an took a taste. It tastes really bad. Lu Chang'an stood there expressionlessly for a while to eliminate the abnormal feeling in his mouth. He looked at the two bottles of liquid and walked to the two professors who were sitting on the ground against the wall because they couldn't run anymore. Drink it. This is my specially prepared herbal medicine. The main ingredients are all natural. Some mint and ginger can make it less unpleasant to drink. You also know that there is basically no good tasting Chinese herbal medicine. The more unpleasant it is, the better it will be. It can effectively neutralize the excess cell activity you mentioned. Lu Chang'an handed it over. Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling looked at the two bottles of strange Chinese medicine, put them to their noses and smelled them. The smell was a bit strong, but it was just the smell of mint and ginger that was a bit irritating, and there was no other odor. Professor Ling took a sip, and as soon as it entered her mouth, the complex and indescribable feeling immediately made her open her mouth, and she spurted it all out, splashing 2 meters in front of her. I knew it was hard to drink. Lu Yu looked back and said fearfully. Fortunately, she drank without holding it. Professor Ling drinks half of it, but Professor Lu must drink it all. Lu Chang'an knew that Professor Ling was relatively rational, and Lu Yuwang was the one who needed a long memory the most. This tastes too bad. Professor Ling's eyebrows, eyes, and nose were all wrinkled together. He had never drank anything so bad. Even if it was Chinese medicine, he could still hold back the nausea. But as soon as your tongue touches a little of this thing, the taste will come out immediately, and your whole body will fall into an uncontrollable nervous reaction, and you may feel like vomiting, convulsions, or convulsions. Is it really that bad to drink? Lu Yuwang hesitated for a moment, but decided to taste a little first. Lu Yuwang sprayed out towards Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an was well prepared and immediately moved out of the way, catching the bottle that Lu Yuwang was not holding firmly. Regardless of whether she didn't hold it firmly on purpose or accidentally, Lu Chang'an caught the bottle and handed it to Lu Yuwang. Lu Yuwang looked at Lu Chang'an with a sad face. The bottle was about to drop. What was he doing with such quick hands and eyes? Are you a child? You want me to have to fight with you for a drink of medicine? Lu Chang'an saw it. She just started drinking without much nonsense and drama, just to pretend that she couldn't stand it, and accidentally threw the bottle away. Drink, drink. Professor Ling pinched his nose, closed his eyes, and drank half the bottle in one breath with determination to die. After drinking, Professor Ling threw away the bottle. Just now he looked like he couldn't run anymore, but now he rushed towards the store at top speed. It's your turn. Lu Chang'an looked at Lu Yuwang and said. I won't drink it until I die. Lu Yuwang had already tasted the taste and said fiercely. Lu Chang'an pinched her cheek and helped her drink more than half of the bottle, but he didn't finish the whole bottle. After all, he could be regarded as a warm-hearted man who cared for her. Lu Yuwang originally wanted to die rather than obey, but it was too late now. Why did he pinch her cheeks and poke her neck with his fingers, and her throat refused to swallow? You, if you come to my house again, I will definitely poison the tea. Lu Yuwang wiped his lips and said angrily. If you can poison me to death, you are considered powerful. Lu Chang'an had no objection and fully supported her approach. Lu Yuwang covered his mouth in surprise. Oh no, it was just what he was thinking, so why did he say it out loud? It's over, he will definitely be vigilant, this person is too difficult to deal with. It turns out that the drowsiness agent made from ivy root powder that he used was ineffective against him. Forget it, he was tormenting himself like this, and when he regained his identity and aura as An Nuan's mother, he could return the favor to his girlfriend in the same way. I can't deal with you, and I can't deal with your girlfriend. At this time, Professor Ling came over and brought a bottle of water to Lu Yuwang. Lu Yuwang was like a traveler who saw an oasis in the desert. He struggled out of his dying state, rinsed his mouth with water, and drank water to cleanse his mouth of the taste that he never wanted to taste again in his life. Let's go to Bailong Center. Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling returned to the car. Lu Chang'an sat in the back, and Lu Yuwang rested for a while before he resumed driving. The car stopped near Bailong Center. Lu Chang'an got out of the car first. Professor Ling seemed to have come to his senses this time and did not hide his face tightly. Lu Yuwang still wore big glasses and covered it with a mask. Face. As soon as he walked out, Lu Chang'an saw a fairy, a child, and a dog. When Zhou Dongdong saw Lu Chang'an, he jumped over with a small skull bag on his back. Lu Xin let out a "oh" and it was held by its original owner Zhu Huntang. "Why are you together?" Lu Chang'an asked. "Today is Children's Day." Sister Fairy said that she is also a child and wants to celebrate the festival with me. Zhou Dongdong turned back and pointed at Zhu Huntang and said, "She is a mentally retarded child, but she can still celebrate Children's Day." Lu Chang'an nodded to express his recognition of Zhu Huntang's right to celebrate Children's Day, but it was a bit difficult to understand. It is winter now, and Children's Day is still half a year away. "What kind of Children's Day are you celebrating?" "Because I am a child, and children can celebrate Children's Day if they want gifts. Of course Zhou Dongdong has his own reasons, and they are very sufficient." "I see." Lu Chang'an understood. Zhu Huntang led Lu Xin and walked over. Lu Yuwang was a little scared when he saw such a big dog, so he pulled Professor Ling and stood behind Lu Chang'an. "Who is she?" Zhu Huntang didn't care about Lu Chang'an's remarks about her being a mentally retarded child. She didn't even care about being treated like a sheep, not to mention that mentally retarded children are still humans after all. She only paid attention to the extremely tall and beautiful girl behind Lu Chang'an. Although her face is tightly hidden, looking at the fair skin exposed on her neck, the flowing and smooth texture of her hair, and the cuteness revealed in the details of her body movements, it is difficult to think that she has taken off her glasses and mask. It will be an ugly face. There is definitely a possibility of hiding an ugly face, but the probability is slim. Thanks to the seemingly bad guy 111, he gave Zhou Dongdong a gift of 100,000 starting coins, which increased Zhou Dongdong's star value by 10,000. "Thank you very much. It's June 1st, and Zhou Dongdong is looking for some star value and some comparison. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal." Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 541. Lu Yuwang was a little nervous. She didn't want Zhu Huntang's attention. She once saw Zhu Huntang and Qin Yanan together when she was walking with An Nuan. The girl Zhu Huntang is a topic in Xiongda University. Both teachers and students talk about it in private. Some are envious, some are jealous, and some are indifferent. However, the school still welcomes her because she is just not very good in class. He is positive and usually does not cause a lot of trouble to the school and raises many problems. No school will refuse students who can bring in a large amount of academic aid and education funds. After all, most schools cannot survive solely on state funding. The school likes it, but Lu Yuwang doesn't like it, because Zhu Huntang didn't even take the college entrance examination, and she didn't accept any test on the education level of students. Others crowded the single plank bridge with thousands of troops, but she built a wide and strong bridge herself. Came over in a Rolls-Royce. It can even be said that she does not need to cross the bridge. She is born to be the object that thousands of people have to work hard to cross the single plank bridge to get close to. If you can work for her after struggling for many years, you are already a successful person. Lu Yuwang would not be naive and unable to accept the fact that all roads lead to Rome. She was a princess in Rome. However, as a female teacher who still maintained some idealist temperament, she would never show enthusiasm and kindness towards Zhu Huntang. Welcome. She just feels that she must maintain an attitude of neither rejecting nor welcoming Zhu Huntang, but a fair attitude with gentleness towards other people who are working hard. Lu Yuwang would not talk about these words or thoughts, because this gesture is only a personal matter, and does not require other people's approval, nor does he need to convince others that they must do the same. Lu Yuang also heard from An Nuan that this girl was friends with Lu Chang'an, but An Nuan was not very jealous of Zhu Huntang. This silly girl, men like this rich lady, Lu Yuang was a little wary, even though Lu Chang'an annoyed her, such a son-in-law should still belong to his family. Obviously, they are people whose identities are inconvenient to reveal. Lu Chang'an did not reveal the identities of Lu Yuang and Professor Ling without authorization. Professor Ling was instinctively nervous, but thinking that Zhu Huntang didn't recognize him either, he smiled. Zhu Huntang looked at the two women behind Lu Chang'an suspiciously. The one who was smiling at him looked ordinary, and the one who had her head hidden and her tail exposed, why did she feel a bit like An Nuan? With this height and the attire of sneakers and clothes, isn't it the usual bamboo pole attire? Zhu Huntang raised his head and glanced at Building 2 of Bailong Center, and couldn't help but make some associations. But it shouldn't be. If it's that bamboo pole, there's no need for such a mysterious dress. Zhu Huntang's heart moved and he suspected vigilantly, are you stealing someone? Are you seeing that I didn't deal with you at noon today? Lu Chang'an gently reminded Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang remembered that Lu Chang'an borrowed the tape from Qin's Haiqiang. If this bad old man awakened to some strange hobby and used it on her, it would be over. Zhu Huntang decided to step back from the edge of the trial of the tape sealing her mouth. Little by little, he pursed his lips, took 2 steps back, and pulled the dog's leash. This is just a subconscious action. After all, for girls, big dogs can still bring some sense of security when they feel threatened. Unfortunately, Zhu Huntang remembered that the person opposite was Lu Chang'an, who specialized in eating dogs and killing dogs. Several of his subordinates were killed and eaten by him, so he might as well forget it. Since this high-level Templar became a new master, Zhu Huntang has become familiar with Zhu Huntang, but Zhu Huntang feels that he has changed a lot. He is cowardly and stupid, and even his bark has become a bit like a husky. No. It turned out to be the low roar of a supercar engine. What did Lu Yuang say when he heard Zhu Huntang's words? She is An Nuan's mother. Zhu Huntang said this, isn't it, isn't it? Lu Yuang's cheeks are slightly red. She is really an arrogant little girl. Why doesn't Lu Chang'an give her a slap? Haven't you heard that Lu Chang'an slaps people in the face at every turn? I want to take Zhou Dongdong to the shopping mall to pick out gifts. Zhu Huntang changed the subject. Since she is Zhou Dongdong's protector, as long as she follows the saint, her status in the Kyushu Fenglai sword sect will steadily increase in the future. If you don't believe that Lu Chang'an's Zhou Fenglai sword sect will only have a few people in the future, I will try to become a senior protector first. Lu Sin, please go back first. Don't look around on the road. Don't be unable to walk when you see a store selling food. You should be obedient and go home early. Zhou Dongdong touched Lu Sin's dog's head and asked Lu Sin go back first, because Zhou Dongdong usually goes directly to Bailong Center after school to find his mother. Lu Sin also sends Zhou Dongdong outside, and he goes back on his own. Dogs are not allowed in the mall, which makes Zhou Dongdong a little sad. After all, good friends should be able to play together wherever they go. Isn't that you? Lu Chang'an felt that Zhou Dongdong might blame Lu Sin for all the things she usually did. Just like sometimes Zhou Shuling warned her not to eat too much, but she always ate without knowing it. After finishing it, I forgot that I ate it and felt that all the delicious food had disappeared for no reason. Zhou Dongdong tilted his head and thought for a while, is that so? Cannot remember. Seeing Zhu Huntang holding Zhou Dongdong's hand and heading towards the mall, Lu Chang'an remembered something and said to Zhu Huntang, I'll let you use your rooftop swimming pool. Zhu Huntang became more and more curious, what on earth did Lu Chang'an want to do? So she nodded immediately, Zhongqing is upstairs. In this season, Zhu Huntang no longer uses the outdoor swimming pool on the rooftop. She does not have to ask for some insulation equipment to be installed to meet her need to play in the water there in winter. Lu Chang'an touched Zhou Dongdong's belly and asked Zhu Huntang to give her less food, and then led Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling to the other side. He is the one who usually gives you the most food, your mother said. Zhu Huntang looked back and said to Zhou Dongdong. Because Brother Chang'an likes children who can eat a lot. The more I eat, the more Brother Chang'an likes me. Zhou Dongdong proudly puffed out his belly. Then look at you, you've grown up, you're still so edible, and you're still so chubby. Do you think Brother Chang'an will still like you? Zhu Huntang couldn't help but think that Zhou Dongdong has grown up, and he's still so chubby. Hoo, how come? Yes, Zhou Dongdong was convinced, just like he would like Brother Chang'an when he grew up, and Brother Chang'an would also like Zhou Dongdong when he grew up. Look at Brother Chang'an's girlfriend, the ant named An Nuan. She is long and flat, not round like you. Zhu Huntang reminded Zhou Dongdong. Zhou Dongdong was stunned for a moment, thinking of the ant, sister named An Nuan. Zhou Dongdong stood there unhappily and refused to leave. I'm kidding you. Brother Chang'an will also like you when you grow up. Zhu Huntang was unexpectedly unhappy when she saw Zhou Dongdong, and quickly coaxed. She thought Zhou Dongdong was also. He is still the kind of person who doesn't listen to others at all and only firmly believes that Brother Chang'an will like him. Zhou Dongdong ignored Zhu Huntang, turned around and ran out of the mall. He looked around hurriedly. He could still see the back of Brother Chang'an in the distance. He didn't run away with his arms waving like a small plane. He tried hard to let go. I ran the fastest and longest with every step, and finally came to Brother Chang'an's side, and tightly grasped Brother Chang'an's fingers. What's wrong? Lu Chang'an lowered his head in surprise, and out of the corner of his eye he saw Zhu Huntang chasing after him. Fairy sister, said that I will be round when I grow up, so Brother Chang'an doesn't like me. Zhou Dongdong hugged Lu Chang'an's thigh and started howling immediately after saying this. Although Lu Chang'an usually likes to watch Zhou Dongdong cry and howl in various ways, but those are the times when she makes Zhou Shuling angry by being stupid, which does not mean that he is willing to see Zhou Dongdong cry at any time. What's going on? Lu Chang'an looked calmly at Zhu Huntang who was chasing him. Zhu Huntang looked at Lu Chang'an's calm demeanor and his tone was as calm as ever, but he was startled and said quickly, I really didn't mean it. I told her that her brother Chang'an liked An Nuan like that. Sister, be careful, she will still be chubby when she grows up. Brother Chang'an won't like her that much. Is that it? Lu Chang'an squatted down and wiped Zhou Dongdong's tears, but looked at her and laughed again. What a stupid child. When I grow up, I want to be long and flat. Zhou Dongdong stretched out his hand to make a long, flat look. I want Brother Chang'an to like it too. Brother Chang'an will also like you when you grow up and become round. It doesn't matter if you become square, cylindrical, triangular, or weird. Do you understand? Lu Chang'an touched Zhou Dongdong. Head of. Zhou Dongdong hugged his precious brother Chang'an again and looked back at Zhu Huntang in a somewhat showy manner. It's not what she said at all. Go play with the fairy sister. Lu Chang'an would not show Zhu Huntang a look in front of Zhou Dongdong. Zhu Huntang doesn't have any bad intentions towards Zhou Dongdong. In the interactions between adults and children, adults often touch some places that adults think are just jokes, but children cannot tolerate touching because of adults thinking. I won't play with her anymore, Zhou Dongdong whispered. You can't be so stingy. Sister Fairy gave you a lot of delicious food before. She is also your good friend. Good friends should forgive each other for mistakes they made unintentionally. You can't be a big-bellied and petty-minded person. My little kid, do you understand? Lu Chang'an's tone was gentle but serious. Heart, what does heart I mean? There is a kid in our class named Jin Xinyan, Zhou Dongdong asked. Go and discuss this issue with Sister Fairy. Lu Chang'an pointed at Zhu Huntang. Although Zhou Dongdong didn't understand what mind's eye meant, he still vaguely understood the general meaning of Lu Chang'an's words. He walked up to Zhu Huntang and said, let's make peace. Okay, we are good friends again. We were just sisters. We were wrong, Zhu Huntang said to her heart, you are such an ant. Who asked you to hug such a thick thigh? Zhu Huntang sighed in his heart. It was really rare for the old man to care about the mood and growth psychology of a child after going through so many things. Zhu Huntang raised his head and glanced at Lu Chang'an. When he found that Zhou Dongdong's back was turned to him, he showed a fierce expression. Zhu Huntang hurriedly pulled Zhou Dongdong and ran away. This bad old man cared about Zhou Dongdong's mood and he grew up, but he didn't care about the cute fairy sheep at all. Did you know that fairy sheep are protected animals? He might be beaten and scolded at every turn. Run quickly. Today's update is dedicated to the great protagonist. By the way, please give me a monthly vote. Thank you to the V crowd for raising more than 20,000 star points. Happy birthday to Zhou Dongdong. Thank you for the 100,000 starting coins given to Zhou Dongdong. Thank you to Jinchuan for being the new member of this book. Leader. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 542. Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling looked at the scene and looked at each other. Professor Ling could only see himself in Lu Yuwang's big sunglasses, but Lu Yuwang saw a kind of admiration in Professor Ling's eyes. Chubby children like Zhou Dongdong are indeed easy to like, but there are not many people who can understand and protect children's hearts. Animals like pandas look very cute. Everyone will say so cute and tease them and take a look at them. But who wants to be a panda breeder? After all, pandas have sharp teeth and claws. Don't give the breeders credit. This is not to say that Zhou Dongdong will hurt Lu Chang'an, but it is very difficult for someone like Lu Chang'an to have the patience and heart to understand the logic and thoughts of such a child. I didn't expect that the guy who treated the two professors so brutally would have such a gentle side. Women are easily aroused by such scenes to have many emotions, such as touching, warmth and favorability. Lu Yuwang had learned before that Lu Chang'an liked to take Zhou Dongdong around to eat and drink. For example, when the college entrance examination results came out and Lu Yuwang treated him to a treat, and Nuan asked Lu Chang'an to bring Zhou Dongdong. Zhou Dongdong even calls sister Lu Yuwang. This is Lu Yuwang's best impression of Zhou Dongdong. He is a smart child. He is different from today's boys. Many boys now have completely different attitudes when they see a beautiful girl like Zhu Huntang, Professor Ling praised. He has a girlfriend, but he still cares whether Zhu Huntang is beautiful or not. Lu Yuwang thinks this is a matter of course. Beauty is really of no use in front of Lu Chang'an, just like himself, beautiful, right? I feel that I am more beautiful than An Nuan now, but will Lu Chang'an have a better attitude because of this? It's like he's blind. Of course, she is An Nuan's mother. If he dares to show a better attitude casually, she will teach him a lesson, no matter how big or small. It's very common for a man to eat from a bowl and look at what's in the pot. Professor Ling found that he was also quite curious about Lu Chang'an. This guy was good looking, with a healthy height and slender figure. The key was that he was very capable and had the ability to control a magical ancestral secret recipe. Don't you want to have sex whenever you get a chance? Lu Yuwang poked Professor Ling's waist and laughed. I'll just talk about it. Professor Ling slapped Lu Yuwang in embarrassment, and then he stopped smiling when he saw Lu Chang'an coming over. Let's go. Lu Chang'an led them upstairs, then found Zhongqing and came to the top of the building. Turn off the camera on the roof, Lu Chang'an said to Zhongqing. Zhongqing glanced at Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling. Come here. Lu Chang'an followed Zhongqing downstairs again. Is something wrong? Lu Chang'an asked. That evening, Zhongqing said something, but stopped talking and just stared at Lu Chang'an. You have something to say? No matter how complicated your eyes are, I can't understand it. Lu Chang'an didn't know why the other party came to him. He had no clue at all. After all, there were many trivial matters that everyone quickly understood. Forgetting is a matter of course. I was drunk that night. Thank you for taking me home. Zhongqing took a deep breath and expressed his gratitude first. Yes, you treat the three of us to a late night snack, Lu Chang'an said politely. But why did you want to knock me out? Zhongqing clasped his hands on his chest and looked at Lu Chang'an incomprehensibly. I also know that you are not an ordinary person. You have a lot of personality and temper. You even touched the third lady. But no matter what, is it too much for you to knock me out? Zhongqing's eyes were angry. Even if Lu Chang'an knew him, he has many beauties, and his love for beauty is not as strong as that of ordinary men, but he is also a man. Zhongqing hates men who beat women the most. This is a psychological shadow that has been remembered since he was a child. If ordinary men hit women, Zhongqing would have already blacklisted such people as contemptuous and disgusting. What you said is really ugly. The word touching can easily be misunderstood. Lu Chang'an shook his head and asked with some uncertainty, you remember that I knocked you out that night? Yes, I have some impressions. I felt that I wanted to thank you for sending me home and to send you out, but you slapped me on the neck and I fainted. Zhongqing stretched out his palm, making a strong gesture. He couldn't even chop Lu Chang'an with one palm. Your impression is too bad. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but sneer, pointing at Zhongqing and mocking, your wine taste is so bad, how could you send me out when you were so drunk? You had to say that she was some kind of woman who also needed a man. She was taking off her clothes and pounced on me. I thought to myself that I can't let you succeed, so I knocked you out. You, impossible. Zhongqing's cheeks turned red and he looked at Lu Chang'an in surprise. How could such a thing be possible? When she woke up that morning, Zhongqing saw Bai Hui accompanying her. She vaguely remembered that she had been beaten by Lu Chang'an. She felt a little embarrassed to tell Bai Hui. When she asked Bai Hui only said that she came up to meet Lu Chang'an. After seeing Zhongqing back, he was about to leave. Bai Hui didn't tell Zhongqing in detail what happened when Lu Chang'an was alone with Zhongqing in the room. Bai Hui had to take care of her cousin's face. For any woman, if she throws herself into someone's arms and is treated like this, it will be a heavy blow. What's impossible? Am I the kind of man who easily lets others get my body? Lu Chang'an patted Zhongqing's shoulder to express comfort. You, Zhongqing felt like he was going to cough up blood, and there was already a touch of excited red on his fair cheeks. If you don't believe me, ask Bai Hui. Does she know about this? At that time, she had to think that I asked you to rape me, so I couldn't explain it. If it spread, it would be bad for my reputation. This society is too harsh on men being raped. There was a lot of ridicule in the public opinion, and they would definitely say that I was too coquettish. It's too ostentatious, I found it myself, and so on. Lu Chang'an sighed lightly. I will never eat supper with you again. Zhongqing is a rational woman after all. She also wanted to pounce on him and bite him with all her teeth and claws, but she finally controlled herself. This man is waiting for her. What should I do if I knock her out again? Learning from the past, I still have lingering fears. That's not necessary. You can have supper at night, but drink less. I don't believe you can control yourself after drinking. Lu Chang'an is still willing to go for supper with Zhongqing, because Zhongqing is not that kind of person. A girl who picks up things like a kitten is good at ordering and eating food. Zhongqing's eyes turned excitedly in his eyes. After a moment, he kicked Lu Chang'an and turned around and left without saying a word. Lu Chang'an didn't care. After all, he had knocked her unconscious. She kicked him, but he was generous enough not to kick her back. Lu Chang'an walked upstairs. Now it was time for Professor Lu and Professor Ling to experience winter swimming. The cold water would lower the surface temperature of the body and stimulate the active combustion of cells in the body to maintain normal body temperature, which would also help them recover. Where can they go to refute this reason? Anyway, they are liberal arts professors. Even with such a flawed argument, it is difficult for them to find points to refute and question. I am very happy. No one criticized me or scolded me today. Everyone must be very satisfied and happy today. The air conditioner has been blowing for too long today, which is not very comfortable. You don't need to worry about it if you update it less. Just like yesterday, I was in good condition, so I updated it more. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Siahua. Chapter 543. Lu Yuang and Professor Ling were standing on the roof of the building. The wind was not strong at this time, but standing on the roof of a more than 400-meter high building, there was always a feeling that if the wind suddenly picked up, they would be blown into the sky. Just like people who are afraid of heights, they always imagine themselves standing on a high place and then falling down. They feel sore all over, and after a chill, they don't want to go up high. It's so high. A while ago, Lao Han and I sent Zizi to school, and we also went to the tallest building in Zhonghai. It's much taller than this one, but it didn't feel so scary. Professor Ling looked around. Then he said. That was inside the room, looking outside through the glass curtain wall. Here is the open air. The Ferris wheel on the top of my waist is almost the same as here. Lu Yuang was a little envious. I didn't expect there to be such a place in Juncha. Look at that glass house, it's a greenhouse, full of flowers. I planted some leeks, green onions, and jasmine on my balcony. There are also helicopters, that Zhu Huntang often takes helicopters to go to school, but now she takes cars more often. Professor Ling clicked his tongue and sighed, what an evil capitalist. Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang have a really good relationship. Lu Yuang moved his eyes away from the helicopter on the tarmac and said thoughtfully, noting the many signs, safety equipment, and the receptionist along the way. The female secretary fully shows that this is Zhu Huntang's private residence, but Lu Chang'an can come and go at will when Zhu Huntang is not around. Instructing Zhu Huntang's female secretary can only show that they really don't see each other. Lu Yuang felt a little uncomfortable. Her prospective son-in-law had a close relationship with a rich lady, so it was inevitable that she would feel sorry for An Nuan. You said Lu Chang'an is not irrelevant. You see, if he knows Zhu Huntang, he can get some investment and cooperate to develop his facial cream. I think there is no need for other skincare products in the world. Professor Ling repeated his old words. Mentioned. This cream of his is very unusual. I suspect that the raw materials are very difficult to obtain, or extremely rare, or even non-renewable. Otherwise, would he have the need to only give us a little bit at a time? We don't have it now. If you use it for the right purpose, you can see that he is so angry that he wants to take what we have eaten out of our stomachs. Lu Yuang was angry at his bad attitude, but he could also understand it. I don't think this cream is an ordinary thing. It's so magical. If this effect is really exposed, it might bring him trouble. This should also be what makes him angry. Professor Ling showed some caution. With a look on his face, do you think it's similar to that or something, a movie we went to see together? Biological zombies. Resident Evil. Yes, you want to say that just like the virus in that movie, it can turn people into zombies, and it can also make people, as powerful as the heroine. Lu Yuang was startled, we infected by a virus. Professor Ling was not very sure about his guess and lowered his voice, I think it can only be something similar, but it doesn't have to be a virus. It won't harm us for no reason. Are our thoughts too outrageous? Lu Yuang laughed, it reminds me of movies. Don't think about it. Professor Ling waved his hand, listen to his method first and return to your original appearance. That's the truth. Lu Chang'an walked up, and Professor Ling and Lu Yuang greeted him. The cell activity in your body now greatly exceeds that of ordinary people. They will continuously promote the body to be in a state of accelerated metabolism. At the same time, because the cell division cycle is shorter, new cells replace the aging cells. This is why you suddenly look much younger. Listening to Lu Chang'an's words, Professor Ling and Lu Yuwang nodded in understanding. This state is not sustainable. If you stay in this state for a long time, it is actually at the expense of the limited number of cell divisions. In other words, you are exchanging lifespan for youth. Lu Chang'an's tone became serious. Then how much lifespan have we shortened? Lu Yuwang was startled, and Professor Ling was also very nervous. Don't worry now, because if you maintain this state for a long time, it will not cause irreparable damage. Elementary school students all know that during the countless divisions of cells, the DNA replication gradually becomes less accurate. This is the root cause of aging and various cancers. Lu Chang'an stopped immediately. He was not trying to fool them into looking fun, he just wanted to scare them. Now we only need to consume these excessive cell activities in a short period of time. That's good, Chang'an, you know so much. Professor Ling felt relieved and said with admiration. I study biology. Lu Chang'an nodded. Then how to consume it? Lu Yuwang asked with concern. Lu Chang'an pointed to the swimming pool. The two professors were a little confused, thinking that Lu Chang'an asked them to bring swimsuits. I didn't bring my swimsuit. Lu Yuwang took 2 steps back and looked at Lu Chang'an warily. She thought about how Lu Chang'an had asked her and Professor Ling to run, which was also a way of consuming some cell activity through exercise. Are you going to swim now? Lu Yuwang does not have the habit or hobby of winter swimming, let alone the interest in trying it. It doesn't matter if you don't bring a swimsuit. If you jump in with your clothes on, the wet clothes will absorb the heat from the body surface faster, causing the body temperature to drop, thus speeding up the consumption of cell activity. Lu Chang'an was very sure of Lu Yuwang's idea. It's a great idea, just jump in. I don't have this idea. Lu Yuwang glared at Lu Chang'an. Where is the locker room? Professor Ling hugged his shoulders. She actually saw the locker room and pulled Lu Yu to look over. Lu Chang'an went to pour a glass of water, took a magazine and sat on the lounge chair next to the swimming pool. Although Zhu Huntang did not come to use the swimming pool, everything was cleaned and maintained as usual, and the lounge chair was clean and ready. White bath towels and blankets. Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling waited for a long time before they came out. After all, this was an open-air rooftop with a cold wind blowing. It took a lot of courage to leave the warm locker room in a swimsuit. When the wind blew, Lu Yuwang felt that his skin was like sand, and he had too many goosebumps. At this time, she was a little envious of Professor Ling's figure, as his body fat was relatively high. Lu Chang'an took a look and was a little dazzled for a moment. Lu Yuwang took off his glasses and mask. His youthful and beautiful appearance looked very much like An Nuan. It's just that An Nuan's daily exercise amount is much greater than Lu Yuwang's, and his limbs don't feel as delicate and overly soft as Lu Yuwang's. Jump in. Lu Chang'an stood up and urged, don't waste time, finish it early, and you can rest early. Lu Yuwang bent down, stretched out a finger, dipped it in some water, quickly retracted it, and tightened the towel wrapped around his upper body. Will it kill someone? You can't die. Lu Chang'an didn't think so. I fought hard. Professor Ling threw away the towel and jumped down suddenly. Ah, my mother, I'm crazy, Hearing Professor Ling, who had always been gentle, use curse words, Lu Yuwang became even more frightened. Shortening your lifespan is better than dying now. Lu Chang'an saw her dawdling and pushed her behind. Ah, Lu Chang'an. My mother. Lu Yuwanjai shouted loudly from the cold, you wait, I have to, I want to go up. Lu Yuwang rode towards the shore of the swimming pool. Just as he climbed up a little, Lu Chang'an pushed him down again. Lu Yuwang changed places, and before Lu Chang'an reached out, she grabbed Lu Chang'an's hand and tried to pull Lu Chang'an into the water. Lu Chang'an remained motionless, looking at her with a smile. He took out his hand and flicked his fingers. Lu Yuwang felt pain in his forehead and fell into the water again. Forget it, endure it, endure it. Professor Ling thought it was amazing that Lu Yuwang still had the energy to fight with Lu Chang'an. She felt so cold that her whole body was stiff. Lu Yuwang was so angry that she poured water on Lu Chang'an in the swimming pool, but Lu Chang'an didn't avoid it and her pants were soaked by her. Hee. Lu Yuwang was a little proud, and was about to splash Lu Chang'an again, but saw his eyes staring at her, very calmly, and was a little scared for no reason. He quickly moved his hands into the water and shrank. Head, walk to the other side in the water. You can swim for a while. Once you get used to it, it won't be so cold anymore and your nerves will be numb, but the consumption of cell activity is still happening effectively, Lu Chang'an suggested. Needless to say, Lu Chang'an said that Professor Ling was already doing some preparatory movements, but usually he would do the preparatory movements on the shore for a while before swimming. After all, swimming brought more accidental dangers than running. Lu Chang'an sat aside and turned on the hot air with a hair dryer, preparing to slowly dry his pants. Fortunately, although Lu Yuwang was reluctant and acted a bit childish now, she did not continue to make trouble after all and climbed to the shore, which saved Lu Chang'an. After a while, the two of them couldn't stand it anymore. They lay on the edge of the swimming pool with trembling teeth and looked at Lu Chang'an pitifully. Okay, Lu Chang'an is also a compassionate person. Professor Ling and Lu Yuwang climbed up quickly, pulled two towels from Lu Chang'an's side, raised their legs and ran to the locker room. When they got ashore, the cold wind blew, and they were as cold as trees covered with snow slag in winter. Likewise, snow slag will fall to the ground in fine pieces at any time. Even if he was wearing a swimsuit at this time, there was nothing eye-catching about him. He was so cold that his whole body turned purple, like a plucked silk-bone chicken. This works well. The forelegs are a bit like four black chicken legs running wildly. Or maybe it's like two black-haired chickens wrapped in towels running wildly. Lu Chang'an thought this metaphor was a good one, so he smiled gently and said, "Slow down, don't fall, don't be in a hurry." Lu Yuwang turned around and glared at Lu Chang'an fiercely. The amorous look at this glance is indeed very similar to An Nuan's, with angry brows but still charming and charming. It always reminds people of the charm that many portraits try to express. Is this genetic gene so powerful? Lu Chang'an rarely sees a mother who looks almost exactly like her daughter when she was young. Just like Zhou Dongdong was rummaging around at home and found out the photos of Zhou Shuling when she was a child. Zhou Shuling was not as round as Zhou Dongdong. This is such a pure gene duplication process. The maternal genetic information is not interfered with or polluted, and is passed on perfectly. While Lu Chang'an was thinking, Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling had already dressed and came out of the dressing room. Lu Yuwang no longer wore a mask or sunglasses, her hair was blow-dried, and her bangs were fluffy and sparse, giving her a girlish temperament. There was a thin hint of anger at the corner of the mouth, as if it were a little hen lazily pecking for bugs on the grass. Suddenly someone poked the soft plush under its wings with a bamboo branch, and it immediately opened its wings and stared, insisting. "I can't peck you twice." "How do you feel now?" Lu Chang'an asked. "Now we just want to find a hotel, collapse on that soft bed, and sleep until dawn," Professor Ling said weakly. "Let's go and book a room at the hotel." "You brought your ID card, right?" Lu Yuwang actually thought about stealing An Nuan's ID card. An Nuan's ID card is usually kept at home. Lu Yuwang feels that he has no problem using An Nuan's ID card now. Although some hotels will require face authentication and ID card verification, not all require it. What's more, some sisters can deceive the face authentication system because of their similar looks, not to mention the incomparable similarity between myself and An Nuan. Pretending to be an 18-year-old girl, it's quite exciting when you think about it. Lu Chang'an originally wanted Zhongqing to help open a room, but after thinking about it, he decided not to bother others. He went to open a suite for the two professors and handed them the room card. "You should try your best to eat and spend money in the hotel. The elevator over there leads to the guest room, and the elevator over here leads to the shopping mall. Don't run around. Lu Chang'an took the pre-authorization, swiped on Lu Yuang's credit card and returned it to her. He led them to the guest room floor. Lu Chang'an found that the rooms of the suite type were relatively concentrated on the same side of the same floor because they were all arranged in the same direction with the same view. Zongqing's long private room was also on this floor. Because Lu Chang'an still had something to say to them, he walked into the room with them. Watching the room door close, Bai Hui walked out of the door frame at the back and took a few long breaths, because she had been hiding in the door frame many times and was discovered by Lu Chang'an many times, so today she took a deep breath, and took a deep breath, keeping herself close. Although the door panels still expose some of the characteristic parts of the body, it can be considered an improvement. Oh my God, Lu Chang'an brought two girls to check out a room. Could he be trying to want? Bai Hui couldn't believe that Lu Chang'an was such a person, but couldn't help but get closer. The soundproofing of the hotel must be as good as express hotels that cost around 100 yuan were different. Bai Hui, knowing this, couldn't help but put his ear to the door of the room where Lu Chang'an and the two girls walked in. I recommend a book called 9 Stars Poisonous Milk. I feel a little uneasy to recommend it to a book like this. The title of this book is full of power. This is a parallel world full of star power. Star maps, star pets, star skills, and awakened ones are all the rage. Zhang Xiao, who came through the soul, contains a strange internal star map in his body. Thanks to the generous reward from the two-dimensional girl Sai Gao, another alliance leader has been added to this book. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 544. Bai Hui was called over by Zhongqing. During the phone call, Bai Hui already knew that the theme of today's meeting between the two sisters was to scold Lu Chang'an. Bai Hui likes this chat topic very much. Although Bai Hui is not that unhappy with Lu Chang'an, speaking ill of Lu Chang'an behind his back is something that interests her. Who makes him so annoying? When it comes to the annoying things Lu Chang'an did, Bai Hui could say that he did them all night without stopping, from high school to college. For example, Bai Hui just saw something that Bai Hui hates. Although there may be various reasons for coming to the hotel with a girl, Bai Hui saw it and she didn't know what was going on. Naturally, she felt a little uncomfortable. So isn't that just annoying? Bai Hui felt that she needed to pay attention to this matter. After all, she was An Nuan's good friend. She didn't want to take the initiative to sow discord and stir up trouble between An Nuan and Lu Chang'an. She was just a good friend. When encountering such a thing, if you don't understand and pay attention to it, how can you live up to the friendship between two people? Bai Hui put her ear against the door and moved her ears. She tried to concentrate, eliminate the noise, and put all her energy on her eardrums. What are they doing? That tall girl looked a bit like An Nuan from the back, but her walking posture and hair were different. An Nuan was just a little bit taller, her hair wasn't as long, and she didn't twist her butt so much when walking. She didn't recognize the slightly shorter girl, and Bai Hui didn't look at their appearance, but the tall girl's mysterious dress was not uncommon in this hotel. Many celebrities come to Junxia. They used to like to stay at the Intercontinental in Baikan, the Grand Hyatt on the riverside, or the St. Regis, which is closer to the high-speed rail station and the airport. Now many celebrities also prefer this newly opened landmark hotel. Could it be the agent pimping him? Bai Hui was thinking wildly and felt that this idea was unreliable and that Lu Chang'an was not that low level. Miss Bai, do you need any help? At this time, a young man in a grey suit came over and asked with a smile. Although Bai Hui behaved strangely, the hotel staff generally maintained a professional smile and courtesy. Hello. Bai Hui was startled, but he quickly reacted. His eyebrows that jumped up returned to their original position, the tail of his eyebrows drooped slightly, and the corners of his mouth tightened helplessly, and a smile bloomed from his heart for no reason. A look of sadness appeared on his face. I just saw my boyfriend and a girl walking into the room. The staff couldn't help but look embarrassed. Logically speaking, this kind of behavior is not allowed in the hotel. When a guest checks in, his privacy must be protected. The hotel may not be able to provide perfect protection, but by Huey's behavior, this behavior of eavesdropping in the corridor is suspected of harassing the guests. Secondly, it will be looked at by other guests, and the impact will not be good. But, seeing that her boyfriend and another girl came to check out a room, it would be unkind for the hotel to directly ask Bai Hui to leave. If you think about it, it would be really uncomfortable. High-end hotels often remember the appearance, names, and even eating habits, usual dining locations, car needs, etc. of their regular guests. Bai Hui has only stayed in the hotel alone 2 or 3 times, but she often dines in the hotel with Zhong Cheng. Playing, for Zonking's level of frequent visitors, who is also an executive of the owner, the staff will also notice Bai Hui, who is often with Zhong Cheng. I suggest you knock on the door or call. The staff member hesitated and said, looking at how pretty the little girl in front of him is. She has a good face and a figure, not to mention, she is dressed like this. Cute little skirt. What kind of man does it take to do something like this? It's true that behind every goddess there is a man who doesn't cherish her. No, I'll leave in a moment. I will leave quietly, without disturbing you, crying or making trouble. This is my last dignity. Bai Hui's expression calmed down, with a hint of despair in his calmness. Please leave it alone. I won't do anything too drastic, so I can just stand here, isn't it okay? The staff was even more afraid that in this situation, Bai Hui's emotions would be stimulated and she would cause a commotion in the hotel. Seeing her as if she couldn't listen to anything, the staff nodded and retreated to the other end of the corridor. Bai Hui knew that the staff on these floors of the hotel were often invisible and often didn't even look at anyone, but as long as the guests stayed in the corridor for a long time and seemed to have something going on, they would usually come out from nowhere. Bai Hui stood at the door, still as quiet as jade, no longer turning her head to listen. She had to finish the show. She also regretted it. She would have to come to this hotel less often in the future. After all, everyone is prone to gossip. Yes, maybe next time she comes, someone will secretly say behind her back that her boyfriend is stealing someone behind her back or something like that. Shameful. After Bai Hui's witty reaction, he felt that his response just now was not witty at all. As for talking about her boyfriend, let Lu Chang'an take advantage. Anyway, he has taken advantage of me a lot anyway. There is nothing wrong with him finding such an excuse out of emergency. Bai Hui's cheeks were slightly red and her heart was pounding. She first walked to Zonking's room to put down her bag, and then ran out to the door where Lu Chang'an had just entered. She peeked around and put her ears close to the one just now. The staff member just came here to annoy someone, and he also explained the reason. There were few guests in the suite, so he shouldn't be beeping again right away, right? Crack. The sound close to his ear was the sound of the doorknob turning. It was a bit harsh, more like a click in his heart. Bai Hui trembled guiltily and stood up straight quickly. She saw An Nuan. He came to help An Nuan catch a traitor, but ended up catching An Nuan and Lu Chang'an? Bai Hui's mood was a little complicated, but she quickly realized that now was not the time for her to be entangled. The current situation was too embarrassing. She was actually caught eavesdropping, and she couldn't even pretend to be passing by. She must find a reason. Bai Hui thought, a little panicked. How about just saying that you were passing by? Then An Nuan will definitely say, are you passing by, or are you passing by with your ear against the wall and against the door? This walking posture is so weird. This reason didn't work. Bai Hui's eyes turned around and hesitantly looked at An Nuan inside the door. Crack. There was another sound, and the door suddenly closed. Bai Hui's nose almost touched the door, and she took 2 steps back and looked at the door in surprise. An Nuan, why did you react like this? Bai Hui hurriedly walked to Zonking's room, touching her cheek as she walked. This scene was really embarrassing. I really don't know how to explain it. It was so embarrassing. But An Nuan's reaction seemed a little wrong, and the person who entered the room with Lu Chang'an was obviously a girl with long hair. Did this An Nuan just now have long hair or short hair? Bai Hui returned to the room with doubts, leaning against the door and thinking. Let's not talk about the problem of An Nuan's hair. She looked at the An Nuan she just saw. She was stunned for a moment, and then her pupils he zoomed in all of a sudden, as if he was frightened. After a brief moment of confusion, he immediately closed the door. This scene seemed like Bai Hui had really been caught and raped. But she is Lu Chang'an's girlfriend. She was seen in the hotel with her boyfriend. She was a little embarrassed at most. A white lotus like An Nuan likes to maintain the appearance of a pure and young girl, so she will naturally be shy and blush. But she didn't just now. She was just shocked. Bai Hui felt that under normal circumstances, An Nuan would have been a little surprised at first, and then her eyes moved, showing some shyness. She put her fingers on the edge of the door. She neither continued to open the door nor closed the door immediately. She just stood there. The brows there were flowing, and the corners of his mouth gradually turned up, looking at Bai Hui meaningfully, and then he seemed to be smiling but not smiling. That's An Nuan's normal reaction. What happened to her today? Bai Fen is puzzled. Could it be that there were really 3 of them running around inside, so they were so frightened? Bai Hui thought about it and found that An Nuan's expression just now could only be explained by this reason. Even if he wasn't messing around, there must be something shady hidden in the room. The more Bai Hui thought about it, the more certain she became, and then she was disappointed and angry. Although she didn't know the nature of the matter, it felt like you had made a friend you valued very much, and you took everything that happened when you were dating him very seriously, but in fact, he has another life and world of his own. Suddenly, I realized that from my contact with him, I only knew a small corner of his life, which made me feel very depressed and angry. He would do a lot of messy things without taking her with him at all. But Bai Hui has no interest in joining them for these messy things, they must be messing around. Consider me blind. Thinking this, Bai Hui opened the door again glumly, stuck out half of her head and looked out the door carefully. We must find out the truth today. Bai Hui felt that it was necessary to find out whether Lu Chang'an was a person who liked to mess around with men and women. For this kind of thing, Bai Hui actually has a little confidence in Lu Chang'an. After all, he would think that he is such a cute, beautiful, and good-looking girl, but he doesn't do anything to her. Bai Hui is now pure and pure. Then I changed my mind and thought, if he is such a person, but he is not interested in her and doesn't do anything to her, doesn't it mean that she has no charm for him? This blow is too heavy. In another room, Lu Yuwang was anxiously telling Lu Chang'an that she had seen Bai Hui. Lu Yuwang knew Bai Hui, a girl, mainly because of An Nuan's talk. Since high school, Lu Yuwang has sometimes been concerned about her daughter's interpersonal relationships in the class. She has heard An Nuan talk about Bai Hui about some things in the class. What impressed Lu Yuwang the most was the video of Lu Chang'an confessing his love to An Nuan in KTV. Another name appeared in it, which was Bai Fen. In Lu Chang'an's prose-rich confession, the description of Bai Hui is not as detailed and graphic as An Nuan's, but it still briefly outlines the beautiful appearance of a girl. Lu Yuwang also saw Bai Hui on An Nuan's mobile phone. Sometimes An Nuan would point to the photos in Bai Hui's space and say to Lu Yuwang aggressively, "When I have this figure, I will also use this angle, take a selfie." Lu Yuwang would say that An Nuan was dreaming, and that she still fantasized about continuing to grow even when she was older. Lu Yuang thought that there was nothing she could do except fill it up. All in all, after Lu Yuang saw Bai Hui outside the door, he quickly retrieved the memory from his mind and recognized that Bai Hui was N Nuan's classmate. It's over, I was seen by that Bai Fan. Lu Yuang grabbed Lu Chang'an's arm, extremely nervous, as if Lu Chang'an was the only bodhisattva who could save her. If you saw it, you saw it. As long as you recover from what happened to you, everything will be fine. Even if the photos are released, some people will think it is just a beauty effect. Lu Chang'an was not in a hurry. On a large scale, spreading and forming public opinion is a kind of pressure and will bring trouble. If it is seen by 1 or 2 people, there is no problem. No problem. Lu Yuang also wanted to believe it, but he was unsure. For example, many people in this world have seen incredible and mysterious phenomena. For example, water monsters that resemble legendary beasts in large rivers and swamps, such as islands with waterfalls hanging in the sky and rapids flowing down to connect to the mainland, and bustling cities with human beings living under the sea. For example, a giant whale swimming in the desert with its whole body emitting dazzling light like the sun. Many people saw it, and it caused a sensation for a while. But what happened afterwards? Scientists came out to refute the rumors, and various folk legends and explanations were ultimately ignored. "You're serious?" Lu Chang'an said disapprovingly. "Why are these things causing such a sensation?" Professor Ling looked confused. She also spends a lot of time online, and usually looks at all kinds of new and interesting things on social media at home and abroad. She had never heard of anything. Lu Chang'an said. "What kind of island in the sky? Underwater city? Desert whale? Water monster?" Did he regard the stories in fantasy novels as current news? It also caused a sensation. Was it sensational when you were dreaming? That's right. Lu Yuang nodded. What is it? Professor Ling saw that she was actually convinced and couldn't help but worry about Lu Yuang. Has your brain shrunk too? The important thing is, it really doesn't matter. Bai Hui's brain is about the same as Professor Liu's. Except for her extraordinary talent in digging up gossip, her brain is not very good in other areas. Lu Chang'an waved his hand. "Don't worry about her, she is probably I'm already thinking wildly outside, probably all about the relationship between men and women, and I won't doubt that you guys have transformed." "You said I'm not very smart." Lu Yuang let go of Lu Chang'an's arm and glared at Lu Chang'an. "I said you are not very smart right now," Lu Chang'an explained. He said you were affected by the transformation." Professor Ling hurriedly tried to persuade him. "Chang'an, don't be too direct. You mean he just needs to speak tactfully, and it's a fact that I'm mentally ill." Lu Yuang turned to look at Professor Ling. Could this sister with thick eyebrows and big eyes have also rebelled? He actually sided with Lu Chang'an. "You see, your brain is working better now." Professor Ling laughed. "That's annoying." Lu Yuang also laughed and chatted nonchalantly for a while. The nervousness just now was gone. "In fact, it's not a big deal, I will recover anyway. You move to the hotel here so that I can teach you, so that I can help you recover. You stay at home. Firstly, you don't want your family to know. Secondly, there are too many acquaintances around, and others will see you like this. Going in and out of the house will inevitably attract more attention. Let Bai Hui know, and at most, N Nuan will know. In fact, is there anything you can't let N Nuan know? I can be someone who can be trusted, let alone N Nuan." "Nuan?" Lu Chang'an glanced at Lu Yuang. "How about I tell N Nuan? Will it scare her?" Professor Ling was a little worried. "No," Lu Yuang reacted fiercely. "What are you worried about?" Lu Chang'an asked. "That girl, we can't let her know. I have already imagined that when she finds out, she will look at me with all kinds of sour eyes, and she will say some nonsense." Lu Yuang shook his head resolutely. Calmly, she did not tell Professor Ling about these manifestations. After all, family scandals should not be made public. Sometimes at home, and Nuan would mind which way Lu Chang'an's face was facing. Lu Yuwang was aware of it. Occasionally, when he accidentally showed the graceful charm that a young girl could not match, and Nuan would pull Lu Chang'an's head to prevent Lu Chang'an's eyes from staying on Lu Yuwang for even 1 second. Bell. Lu Yuwang found it hard to talk about this stupid way of being jealous. Could he tell his best friend that his daughter was jealous of her? It's so embarrassing to have such a daughter. Fortunately, her daughter's boyfriend is still reliable, otherwise what will she do in the next life? Lu Yuwang thought worriedly and happily. Okay, if she doesn't ask me if I know where you are, I won't tell you. Lu Chang'an nodded. After all, this is an issue between Lu Yuwang and An Nuan, and he will not blindly try to interfere. You mean you'll betray me if she asks you? Lu Yuwang asked. Yeah, if I know clearly and she asked me but I didn't tell me, wouldn't that mean I'm just helping you? There's no reason. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and decided to be honest. What if she knows about this later? If something goes wrong, wouldn't she be angry with me? In comparison, if you are angry with me, I don't really care. Chang'an, what you said is wrong. You and An Nuan haven't gotten married yet. Before they got married, the mother-in-law-to-be was the number one. Don't you see that many boyfriends are the number one of the father-in-law and mother-in-law? Are you a loyal fan? My father-in-law and mother-in-law's friends are the first to like it, read the articles they repost, and then write their thoughts after reading it. I also saw a father-in-law who writes poems, which makes no sense, and the boy also writes every word. I've memorized it. Professor Ling was very positive when talking about the family's shortcomings. Lu Yuwang was annoyed by this. It felt like her hot face was against her cold butt. She felt like she was clinging to Lu Chang'an normally. It's only natural to reciprocate love. Lu Chang'an must value her no matter what. Not to mention that her status with him is on par with An Nuan, but at least she must be equal in face and take care of both parties, right? Do you think you just did a stupid thing and you still want me to care about whether you are angry or not? Is it appropriate? Lu Chang'an pointed to Lu Yuwang's reflection on the TV, letting her realize that she does not have the prospective mother-in-law now. Appearance. Lu Yuwang suddenly felt guilty, feeling that he probably couldn't hide this from An Nuan. What a licking dog Lu Chang'an was. As for Professor Ling, what you said also objectively reflects a social problem. Nowadays, the voice of women's rights is getting louder and louder, but in fact, men's excessive pressure on marriage and family establishment is often not matched by the voice of women's equal rights. Scream for them. Some pressures are imposed by society, some pressures are imposed by oneself, and some are imposed by marriage partners. Lu Chang'an was slightly emotional. I think back then, it was so easy for everyone to get married. Some families were stubborn, but more open-minded and progressive young people. They hold hands, report applications to units and organizations, and then go to take photos to receive certificates. These people run their families and work hard. Now they have reached the age of enjoying happiness. Now the main force traveling abroad is also this generation. You are right. The divorce rate of this generation is much lower than that of later generations. If we build a family together and work hard to achieve a well-off life, the family will be more stable. But anyway, there will always be cheating and divorce in any era, Professor Ling said with some emotion. Said. You are still in the mood to talk about this, Lu Yuwang interrupted Lu Chang'an and Professor Ling's discussion about life. Lu Chang'an, go and warn that Bai Fen, don't chew your tongue, let alone think about the relationship between men and women. Lu Yuwang's cheeks felt slightly hot. Little girls these days have unhealthy thoughts. When they see a man accompanying a woman to a hotel, they like to think about the relationship between men and women. It's none of your business to open a room and chat. Lu Chang'an nodded. The little girl Bai Hui obviously likes to think wildly and chew her tongue. He is not worried that Bai Hui will go everywhere to publicize it. But if Bai Hui knows about it, and it's something related to him, then she and Zhu Huntang have something in common. Zhu Huntang knew. In Zhu Huntang's opinion, she was Qin Yinan's dog-headed military advisor. Lu Chang'an had already come to check in with someone, so she couldn't inform Qin Yinan. Where is Qin Yinan? Maybe I'll faint again as soon as I come out. Brother, come and save me. Yes, Ijin might do this, not to mention Qin Yinan now, she has a gestational sac in her belly. When she thinks about this, she probably has there is a reason to be angry and cause trouble. Based on this, Lu Chang'an had to go find Bai Hui. Lu Chang'an took out his mobile phone and was about to call Bai Hui when a call came in. It was An Nuan. Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling both paid attention to Lu Chang'an. When they saw the name Nuan Bao Bao displayed on his mobile phone, their expressions suddenly changed. This is a nickname, she changed it with my mobile phone, Lu Chang'an explained with a little embarrassment, and then answered the phone. Who cares about this? How can you answer the phone? Lu Yuwang was very depressed. She had clearly heard An Nuan say before that whether Lu Chang'an answered the phone or not was random. Why did he choose to answer the phone 100% empty-handed now? Where are you? An Nuan's voice was delicate. Lu Chang'an listened to the subway arrival announcement and was a little happy to know that she was on the subway. I'm in the hotel. In the hotel? Who are you with? As soon as she heard that she was in the hotel, An Nuan immediately changed her phone's ears and put on her fluffy hat at the same time. The two bunny ears on the hat jumped. It's a jump. Your mother, Lu Chang'an reported. Lu Yuwang listened and rushed to grab the phone, but Lu Chang'an dodged it. She patted her cheek and simply threw herself on the sofa. Forget it, who asked her daughter to find a boyfriend who was loyal? What about dog licking? My mother, An Nuan couldn't help shouting, and then she saw the eyes around her. She quickly said I'm sorry, then turned and hid in the corner of the carriage, hitting the armrest with her head a few times. Is my mother Professor Lu? Of course your mother is Professor Lu, who else could she be? Lu Chang'an's lips curled up slightly. Sure enough, even though Lu Yuwang had the same face as An Nuan was still the cutest one. Cuteness has nothing to do with appearance, as long as you are beautiful enough. Why are you and her in the hotel? Are you chatting? An Nuan was anxious. Although she felt that something ridiculous could not happen, she had to seek vague confirmation and Lu Chang'an had to tell her personally. Yes, we just talked about marriage, family, the pressure of marriage, and the problems that boyfriends face with prospective father-in-law and mother-in-law. Lu Chang'an nodded. Professor Ling is here too. Professor Ling is here too, An Nuan laughed easily, her voice sweetened again. I'm coming too, I'm here to find you. Okay, come here. Lu Chang'an said the name of the hotel and the room number. She went to the front desk and asked the staff to help use the guest room elevator. Lu Chang'an hung up the phone. Is she coming here again? Professor Ling asked, a little embarrassed. That girl will probably make fun of me for being like this. Why would she make fun of you? Her firepower must be aimed at Professor Lu, Lu Chang'an said to Professor Ling comfortingly. Lu Yuwang was lying on the sofa, his tall and slender figure occupying the entire sofa. He turned his head and glared at Lu Chang'an fiercely. Alas, this fierce look is similar to An Nuan's, but she doesn't share An Nuan's cute look. Will it scare her? Professor Ling asked again. That girl's nerves tend to go astray, and her focus will definitely not be on why we are like this. Lu Yuwang turned back to lie down and said dully. It's good to let her understand and prepare for the future. Of course Lu Chang'an has more intentions and preparations for An Nuan. He hopes to let her understand step by step instead of suddenly subverting her worldview, otherwise, she will definitely. It's hard to accept. After all, An Nuan is different from fairies like Zhu Huntang. What kind of mental preparation? Professor Ling was also very concerned about An Nuan, but she failed to understand what Lu Chang'an meant. Let her gradually understand how powerful her boyfriend is. Lu Chang'an smiled. Professor Ling also smiled and didn't ask any more questions about the children's affairs. You're so good that you can't reach heaven, right? Although Lu Yuwang was a little sarcastic, he felt that it was true. If you were more powerful, you would definitely reach heaven. You are flying in the sky, and let an Nuan hold you like a rope. Fly the kite, lest it fly too high and fail to land. Lu Chang'an ignored her, went to the water cabinet, opened a bottle of water, and poured a glass for both Professor Ling and Lu Yuwang. Professor Ling still acted like a well-educated middle-aged woman. She took the cup with both hands and said thank you. However, Lu Yuwang was lying on the sofa, taking the cup with his backhand and placing it in front of him, holding the cup with his fingers and turning it around. And ignored Lu Chang'an. Lao Lu, are you tired now? When I just came out of the swimming pool, I always felt that I might fall down at any time, but now that I have been back in the dormitory for so long, I feel that my physical strength has recovered again. Professor Ling took a sip of water and was surprised. Said, I'm not tired either. It may be due to some cell activity, which is burning up our lifespan. Lu Yuwang hummed and expressed his understanding. Professor Ling thought it made sense and turned to look at Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an didn't say anything, just waved his hand. He was 90% nonsense to begin with, and now he was too lazy to continue nonsense seriously. Why hasn't an Nuan come up yet? After drinking a glass of water, Lu Chang'an looked at the time. He had already called Lu Yuwang out of the house. As his boyfriend, wouldn't it be justifiable for him to pay a night visit and stay at his girlfriend's house tonight? And Nuan has already entered the elevator. She went to the front desk to register as a visitor, reported her room number and Lu Chang'an's registered name, and the staff helped her swipe the elevator room card. It's just that the staff member looked at him a little strangely, unlike other staff members who just smiled and looked at each other in a professional and polite manner. And Nuan walked out of the elevator and saw Bai Hui looking in a certain direction while tiptoeing against the wall to the elevator. Why is Baifan here? And Nuan involuntarily slowed down her pace and said nothing, just looking at Bai Hui. Bai Hui took a few steps. She was just observing, but she suddenly felt vigilant about the appearance of an old enemy. When she turned around, she saw An Nuan. Bai Hui was startled and took a few steps back. When did An Nuan come out of the room and go downstairs again? It was obvious that after she was kicked out by the staff, she went back to her room and came out immediately. She stretched out half her head at the door of her room to look around. Who could control her? It was very tiring to maintain such a peeping position, so Bai Hui went out to walk around again. When someone came to disturb her, she would go back and continue to just stick out her head to observe. No one could care about her. Bai Hui didn't say anything. The An Nuan in front of her seemed to be dressed completely differently from what she saw just now. What she was wearing was what Bai Hui was wearing when he met her in the morning. Could it be that she changed clothes when she went downstairs? Recommend a good book, Hanzhou Jo Men, the author's name is very correct, Dress Upright. Shen Jizi came to the early years of the Eastern Jin dynasty and became the son of a powerful clan in the south of the Yangtze River. He had thousands of acres of fertile land, a fortune, and many servants. He was a rare and well-matched person who traveled through time. Unfortunately, his father was a habitual rebel. Clothes and crowns travel south. Wu Huan messes with China, the lament of China, the tragedy of Hanzhou. The rich and aristocratic family is unreliable. It is a raccoon dog in the north and a raccoon dog in the south. There are two bad breeds, and they just want to be safe. How can the fertile Han territory of China be allowed to make fuss about barbarians? I will spend my whole life building a northern expedition volunteer army that can kill the Hulu, restore Shenzhou, and prosper the Han dynasty. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 545. Bai Hui was filled with doubts, and for a moment she forgot to say hello to An Nuan, and just kept looking at him. and Nuan was also looking at Bai Hui. Although he was a little surprised to meet Bai Hui in the hotel, it was not too surprising. After all, Bai Hui often posted some selfies in this hotel, and Nuan had seen the address here. But what is Bai Hui's look like? We are all acquaintances, why do you look so new, and let the slave family take a closer look. In the floor monitoring room of the workroom, two hotel staff, a man and a woman, were watching the surveillance at the elevator entrance. Man, this tall girl should be the mistress. I just watched the man open a room and bring two girls in. This tall girl is one of them. It's rare to find such a tall girl. Looking at her figure and appearance, she is much better than the internet celebrity models and stars who come to our hotel. Woman, also, this guy seems to have a good figure, but his clothes are a bit childish and he looks pretty good. This guy is really a scumbag. He has two different things. Man, I'm afraid they're going to start a fight. After a while, the supervisor has to criticize me again. Last time, Cai Guancan was playing basketball in the corridor. I didn't stop him in time, so he was criticized. Woman, probably not. Judging from their situation, maybe both of them feel guilty. Man, what are you guilty of? Woman, if we were serious about catching the mistress, we would have rushed forward. How could it be like this? I suspect both of them are mistresses. Man, both of them are mistresses? No wonder she said she saw her boyfriend checking into a room with a mistress. How could she be a real girlfriend hiding here and peeking in? She would have rushed up to her. Woman, I also noticed that the woman who went in with the man at the beginning was also very tall and had a good figure, but the clothes she wore were completely different from this one. I thought the one at the beginning was the main palace. This both of them are mistresses. Look, they started to greet each other, politely. How can it be like meeting a mistress with a real person? This is how a mistress would behave like this when she meets a mistress. Man, that's right. I can handle everything. And Nuan and Bai Hui had already realized that it was indeed wrong for the two of them to stand and stare at each other without speaking. What a coincidence. Did you come here after class too? And Nuan pulled the shoulder strap of her backpack and showed a slightly shy smile, as if she was embarrassed to be discovered and exposed to acquaintances. If he hadn't known that Lu Chang'an was with his mother and Professor Ling, or he suddenly saw Bai Hui, and Nuan would have had to analyze it again. Yeah, my cousin asked me for something, so I came over. Are you coming to play? Bai Hui stopped leaning against the wall and opened her hands, and looked at the expression on Nuan's face. Sure enough, this is the most normal state. The warmth of the white lotus made it tremble like a mimosa when touched gently. Lu Chang'an, my mother, and a professor from the school are here. He asked me to come to them. I didn't want to come, but it's boring to be alone at home, and Nuan said helplessly, and invited warmly, have you eaten? If Lu Chang'an hasn't eaten later, let's eat together. Is Professor Lu Yuang also there? Bai Hui knew that Nuan had a mother who was famous in school. In terms of charm, Nuan was not as good as that professor. Nuan was just a beautiful sports girl who was not too outstanding, and was relatively ordinary. The feeling that Nuan gives to Bai Hui is that she is often imitating someone else, probably the HD toddler Professor Lu, so she is specious and a bit pretentious, without the natural charm of Professor Lu. Since there are still two elders here, it seems that he is overthinking it and Lu Chang'an is not messing around with others. Bai Hui found that she was in a good mood, maybe because her friend did not disappoint her. You guys can eat. I have to accompany my cousin. She has made a reservation. Do you want to help me make a reservation? The temporary reservations at Zuji upstairs are usually not available. Bai Hui became calm and didn't care about anything else. Question, asked with a smile. Nuan was a little surprised that he had thrown such a powerful killing move, implying that Lu Chang'an and he were not an ordinary boyfriend and girlfriend. He could already intervene in the private social circle of his elders. This was an ordinary boyfriend and girlfriend relationship. Basically, he is treated like a son-in-law. Why doesn't Bai Fen seem to realize this? Logically speaking, Bai Hui should have this kind of sensitivity, and should feel that the relationship between Lu Chang'an and An Nuan is indestructible, so it is best to retreat when faced with difficulties, run away at the risk of one's life, and escape to HD. But Bai Hui doesn't. Does she still like Lu Chang'an? An Nuan was a little disappointed. This kind of disappointment is of course not because no one comes to compete with her for her boyfriend, but because it doesn't hit Bai Hui. Maybe she was just doing well on the surface, maybe she had already received a heavy blow in her heart and was holding back some energy. Don't bother, we don't know where to eat yet. An Nuan smiled and shook her head, then turned her bag from behind to in front of her. By the way, I also prepared a small gift for you. Thank you. Bai Hui clapped her hands, looking very expectant. An Nuan took out a mobile phone case and said, well, I think the flowers in the back look very much like you. The warm and simple smile matches you well. Wow, Takashi Murakami's mobile phone case. I really like this old man's works. Bai Hui showed a surprised smile. As long as you like it. An Nuan handed it to Bai Hui. Bai Hui didn't answer and was a little hesitant, but this looks so expensive. I just gave you a thermos pot. Your phone case is much more expensive. We are good friends. There is no reason to compare prices when giving gifts between good friends. Do you not regard me as a friend? An Nuan said with a hint of dissatisfaction. That's true. Then I'll just say thank you. I won't give you any more gifts. Bai Hui took it and smiled. The price of this phone case hasn't gone up yet, and Bai Hui also knows the price. The selling price of soft shells is less than 10,000 yen, which is within the range that An Nuan can afford to give gifts as a favor, so he accepts them with peace of mind, and there is no psychological burden. If a classmate from an average family background gives such a gift, Bai Hui felt that it was not easy to accept it. If he accepted it, he would have to give back a considerable gift. You're welcome. An Nuan waved her hand coolly. I'm going to find Lu Chang'an. Bai Hui pressed the elevator button, looked up at the indicator light, and walked to another elevator next to her to wait. This way, when Lu Chang'an's room opened, she wouldn't be able to see her. An Nuan came to the door and pressed the doorbell. It was Lu Chang'an who opened the door. I just met Bai Hui here. An Nuan bluffed Lu Chang'an delicately. Tell me, are you stealing someone behind my back again? I originally planned to steal it from you tonight, but you brought it to my door yourself. Lu Chang'an said in a low voice and nodded. Save trouble. How dare you say that to me? An Nuan raised her little fist angrily, about to hit someone. Come in, don't flirt at the door, pay attention to your appearance. Professor Ling greeted the young couple who seemed to be bored when they met. An Nuan glanced at Lu Chang'an doubtfully. The voice was a bit unfamiliar, but the tone of voice was also familiar. Did Lu Chang'an really steal someone? Which woman is this? An Nuan tilted her head and looked away from Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an stepped aside and An Nuan walked in. He closed the door and walked inside to see a young woman who was strange but somehow familiar. She was looking at An Nuan with a slightly embarrassed expression. Smile, but forcefully maintain a sense of calmness and a certain attitude. Who is she? An Nuan turned around and looked at Lu Chang'an questioningly. Professor Ling. An Nuan opened her mouth slightly, looked at Lu Chang'an, and then at Professor Ling, then laughed and hit Lu Chang'an. I hate it, stop joking. Why did you suddenly make a joke about Aunt Ling? Tell me, is it right, your friend? Nuan, I am really your Aunt Ling. Professor Ling said helplessly. We became like this because we ate too much cream given by Lu Chang'an. Are you kidding? And Nuan didn't believe it and looked back at Lu Chang'an. Could it be that you are talking about being with my mother and Aunt Ling, and this is Aunt Ling? What about my mother? She knew you were coming, so she hid in the bathroom and refused to come out. Lu Chang'an pointed in the direction of the bathroom. And Nuan looked at Lu Chang'an, at Professor Ling, then at Lu Chang'an, then took 2 steps toward the bathroom, and forced a smile. This is a prank, right? No, why are we joking with you like this? We all asked for leave to hide here and were planning to go back after recovering, but Lu Chang'an felt that there was no need to hide it from you, so he asked you to come too. Professor Ling continued explained, do you still remember when you and Hans Hizzy were bitten by a dog when you were a child? What did I use to hit you with? A bicycle chain. And Nuan was stunned. And Nuan had told Lu Chang'an about being bitten by a dog, but Lu Chang'an definitely didn't know why he was beaten. In addition to himself and Hans Hizzy, Professor Ling and his mother were also involved in this matter. No one knows anymore. As a girl, it was very humiliating to be whipped with a bicycle chain when she was a child. There was no way An Nuan would tell anyone. Do you still remember that the first time you had your period, it was at my house and you soiled Hizzy's bed? Hizzy even cut off the soiled area and said she wanted to save it. She said it was like this on TV, and then I beat her again, using a bicycle chain. Remember, Professor Ling continued to tell old stories that could prove his identity. Stop it, stop talking, and Nuan blushed and stood against the wall, staring at Professor Ling. At the same time, she was very angry that Lu Chang'an blocked his ears unconsciously and listened quietly with great interest. Despite Professor Ling's always elegant and easygoing appearance, she and Hans Hizzy were often beaten by her when they were children. Moreover, Professor Lu used bamboo sticks and pointers the most, but Professor Ling was the most vicious. In the entire community, except hers, no one else has a bicycle chain. You believe it? Professor Ling laughed. Although An Nuan was still dubious emotionally, her mind had begun to analyze. She slowly walked over and looked at Professor Ling up and down. I testify that I lied to you that I was a puppy. Lu Chang'an also explained, last time I was at your house, you noticed that your mother had grown taller. I told you at that time that if you continue to eat those creams, you might get worse. Serious consequence. And Nuan nodded, and she began to accept the reality. Suddenly she remembered something, turned on her phone, and ran to Hans Hizzy's space for a walk. She remembered that Hans Hizzy had uploaded the marriage certificate of Hans Hizzy's parents, probably a young parent. The activity of appearance at that time. And Nuan looked at the photo, then at Professor Ling, and finally accepted it, walked over and hugged Professor Ling. Aunt Ling, it turns out that your figure and face have changed drastically after giving birth to Hizzy. I just remember that you are what we had nightmares about when we were the same age. It turns out you were so beautiful before. How did you talk? Didn't I look beautiful later? Professor Ling had a straight face, but he also hugged An Nuan and then laughed. Beautiful. Beautiful, and Nuan was inexplicably excited. After all, this kind of thing is so rare. Originally, her mother's height change caused An Nuan surprise. Now this change in appearance is even more amazing. As a science student, An Nuan was far more aware of the incredible meaning than Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling. But she is also a girl, and she is particularly concerned about the superficial phenomenon of this change in appearance, and has not thought about the principle or scientific explanation for the time being. Your mother has become more beautiful too. Professor Ling reminded An Nuan that she was actually looking forward to An Nuan seeing Lu Yuwang. The smile on An Nuan's face turned into an unbelievable surprise. Can Professor Lu become more beautiful? Are these polite words? An Nuan felt that her mother looked very much like herself, and the inheritance between mother and daughter was indistinguishable. Sometimes An Nuan felt that her youthful aura was more attractive, and sometimes she had to admit that Professor Liu's style was more charming. Generally speaking, they are comparable. But if she has become more beautiful, doesn't it mean that she has become more beautiful than An Nuan? Although under normal circumstances, a daughter should be happy when her mother becomes beautiful, but the situation in her family is special. Lu Chang'an and Professor Lu, and Nuan can't forget their past. They were already very destined and got along very well, and their last names matched each other. One was Lu, the other Lu, and they sounded similar in pronunciation. Now Professor Lu has become more beautiful, and Lu Chang'an is also a person who looks good. And Nuan's greatest confidence that Lu Chang'an likes her is that she is the most beautiful and lovely girl in the world in Lu Chang'an's eyes. If Professor Lu becomes younger and more beautiful, wouldn't the most beautiful and lovely girl in the world become Professor Lu? And Nuan was in a complicated mood for a moment. She cleared her throat and asked with concern, "Will it affect your health?" "It won't be affected, and it will recover. It's just like this temporarily," Lu Chang'an said. And Nuan still trusts her boyfriend very much. Since he said so, and Nuan has nothing to worry about. Now all I need to worry about is how Professor Lu has turned into a young and beautiful girl. "Mom, I'm here," and Nuan shouted towards the bathroom. Lu Yuwang remained silent. "Mom," and Nuan walked to the sliding door of the bathroom. Suites generally have separate toilets and bathrooms, with dry and wet areas separated in the bathroom. Many people like to have floor-to-ceiling windows next to the bathtub. They can soak in the bathtub at an altitude of more than 400 meters and look at the scenery outside the window. This is a very ritualistic feeling enjoyment. Therefore, in order to cater to this ceremonial sense demand, the bathroom area of high-end hotels is relatively large, even almost the same as the bedroom area. And Nuan originally thought that after her relationship with Lu Chang'an reached a certain stage, some related plots could be realized. "Professor Lu," and Nuan said against the sliding door, "do you plan to hide inside all the time?" "Go away," Lu Yuwang said. She just didn't want to see An Nuan. After all, she had been taught a lesson by Lu Chang'an. With An Nuan's personality, it would be strange for Lu Yuwang not to take the opportunity to take the commanding heights and talk to Lu Yuwang. Your voice," and Nuan was already mentally prepared, but when she heard a voice that seemed to be that of her peers, speaking in her mother's usual tone, and Nuan wrinkled her nose in surprise, then turned around and spoke. Lu Chang'an looked at each other. "When she contacted me at first, I didn't recognize her voice," Lu Chang'an said. "Why did she contact you in the first place but not me?" and Nuan grasped the key point sensitively. "What's the use of contacting you?" Lu Chang'an shook his head. "But I am her daughter, and I am the person closest to her. When she has a problem, I am not the first person she looks for," and Nuan pouted, looking sad. "Your behavior now is the reason why I don't want to find you," Lu Yuwang spoke through the bathroom door. This damn girl became jealous as soon as she heard that Lu Yuwang contacted Lu Chang'an first. "You don't speak for me, you help her," and Nuan discovered Lu Chang'an's problem again. Lu Chang'an just looked at her and smiled. Seeing Lu Chang'an's guilty smile, and Nuan felt a little sweet, so she pouted and said, "Forget it, Lu Chang'an can't be blamed for this matter, it was all Professor Liu's fault. Also, if Lu Chang'an hadn't called me here, you would have kept it secret from me. Did you not intend to let me know at all?" and Nuan still knew her mother very well. Yes, that's it, are you satisfied? Come away quickly, I don't want to see you." Lu Yuwang also raised his voice. "Mom, come out. Come out and let me see," and Nuan started to act coquettishly. Anyway, as a daughter, she can change from asking for trouble to acting coquettishly to her mother in a second. "Old Lu, just come out. Can you keep hiding?" Professor Ling relaxed. And Nuan didn't look at her like she was a monster, or was too frightened to accept it, so he began to persuade Lu Yuwang. "Yes, I didn't control you. I was also wrong. I promise I won't tell you anything," and Nuan also persuaded, then turned back to Lu Chang'an and said, "She has really become more beautiful, hasn't she become ugly?" "She hasn't become ugly," Lu Chang'an shook his head, "she has become like you, how can she be ugly?" It was rare for Lu Chang'an to praise Professor Lu, but An Nuan was also happy, but even more curious, Mom, are you exactly the same as when you were young? And Nuan has seen Lu Yuwang's old photos. Compared to now, her clothes look a bit more fashionable at that time. Yes, she has become prettier than you. Lu Yuwang heard that and Nuan suspected that she had become ugly, and became a little dissatisfied. Also, Lu Chang'an, I didn't become what she was, I became what she was when I was young. Look, she inherited my look. Why do you and your daughter care about this? Professor Ling was helpless and walked over and opened the door. Come out and let An Nuan see what you looked like when you were young. You two look like twins. Is it really so similar? And Nuan was looking forward to it in surprise. She was usually told that she looked similar to her mother, but in fact, it was mainly because of the similarity in facial features, and there was a big difference in temperament. Now that my mother has become younger, without that mature female temperament, how similar will I be to my mother? And Nuan couldn't help but be a little excited. Who doesn't want to be like twins with his mother? Zhou Dongdong brought his two guardians to seek some star value. Zhou Dongdong, click to send a gift. There are chicken drumsticks in it, so I can eat it? Zhu Huntang, BAA, BAA BAA, BAA BAA BAA. BAA BAA BAA. Same as above. Lu Sin, OM. OM.